What's going on, everybody? Hi, welcome to the Jeff Gerstmann Show. It's me, Jeff Gerstmann. Weird that I'm here, but here we are, hosting such an illustrious program. It's great to be here. I want to thank everyone for being here with me, whether you're live or whether you're listening in the literally dozens of locations where this podcast can be found. That too loud for everybody? Still clean though? Clean but loud? I found my microphone audio settings got tossed yesterday in some kind of catastrophic accident, and then I just discovered that the slider was not all the way up. So now it's all the way up. Now we're redlining. Now we are straight up clipping. We're gonna bass boost this entire podcast. And then I want you out there in your Nissan trucks with your bass tubes. I want you to just be driving around the block, listening to this at full volume, and I want you to set off as many car alarms as you can with the sound of my voice. With the power. What? No, I don't know. I want to try to get in your subwoofers, girl. No, hi. It's Tuesday, and that can only mean one thing: that the podcast is on the air. And here we are. It is 10 in the morning. And it is 87 degrees outside, so time to drink some nice warm tea, to make sure that my throat, make sure I've got to take care of my instrument. You know what I mean? My instrument, my voice, my pipes, my tubes. No, tubes probably isn't the right. Tubes probably isn't the right thing. Thanks everyone for tuning in, and thanks to everyone who's gotten in touch. We're a couple of weeks in on this new endeavor, and it has been tremendous. It has been successful and nice, and I thank everyone for joining up. If you want to learn more about how you can get an ad-free version of this show, and you want to hop on the Discord and chop it up with a ton of great people, we're having a lot of fun over there. You can go to patreon.com/Jeff Gerstmann for that information. If you're listening to the audio because you searched it in some kind of podcast thing and you're like, I want to see video of this, that stuff goes up on YouTube later on, generally speaking, later on Tuesdays, early Wednesday, depending on where you are, all that other stuff. And yeah, that's, yes. Is that all the housekeeping? I think that's all the housekeeping. What else is going on in the world of housekeeping? We're getting the walls torn out. That's going to happen a little bit later this week. There's moisture, there's wetness all up in the walls. Some men are going to come in here, and I assume they come with hammers. I assume they're going to come in with like large sledgehammers and just like sledgehammer the low parts of the wall. And then they put in dryers, and those dryers will be here from, I believe, Thursday to Monday. So we'll be here today doing the podcast. We'll be here tomorrow streaming some recent releases, probably some Neon White, maybe some Ninja Turtles. I don't know. We'll figure that out. And then the Friday stream is a little bit TBA because I want to see what they're going to put in the house. They said that the dryers were not that loud, but maybe we'll just put NVIDIA Broadcast to the test and stream in here anyway. I don't know. We'll see. We'll see how it all goes. And then once that gets dry, then we have to contact someone else to come in and put stuff in, and that'll happen at a later date, I guess. So I guess we've just got holes in the walls for a while. I'm sure that'll be fine, right? I'm sure that'll be fine. Hey, offsetting all of that, Got my Steam Deck order in. Yesterday was Steam Deck day for me. I was a Q2. I was a Q2 person for the Steam Deck pre-orders, and yesterday my number came up. And so I put my money into Gabe Newell's tender hands and said, sendeth me a Steam Deck. And they said, we will get right on that. And then I don't know. I kind of just want to emulate stuff on it. Like people are like, oh man, it's so good for playing Hades. And I'm like, that's awesome. I bet it is. It's like so good for Vampire Saviors. Like, yeah, totally. I will obviously install Vampire Saviors. I finished Hades all the way. So it's, probably going to be a little bit before I do another, full playthrough of Hades or something like that. But yeah, the kind of emulation aspect of the Steam Deck is sort of the thing that I am most interested in. Obviously, there are other ways to have portable emulation machines. They sell a number of them. You can get a paper clip and turn a Switch into one, I think is how that works. That works okay up to a certain point, but the Steam Deck seems like it is far more powerful. Am I going to play Shadow the Hedgehog? That's the question. Am I going to play Shadow the Hedgehog? Yeah, that's definitely. I mean, I'm getting a Steam Deck so I can play Shadow the Hedgehog on the go. Because Sonic the Hedgehog is just not edgy enough for me. He taps his foot and he's like, I've got an attitude. Shadow the Hedgehog's like, I've got guns. That's way edgier than tapping your feet. Just ask anyone. Go on. Go ask. So I don't know. I'm excited about getting a Steam Deck and really putting it through its paces. I haven't really seen that in person or been able to really, have anyone really do cool shit with the Steam Deck. And, it's cool. Hey, it's awesome. You can play games on Steam on it and they run really well for the most part or up to a certain point, and that's really great. But I want to see some funky shit. Yes, I want to make 50 Cent Blood on the Sand run on a portable device if possible. I know some people have done stuff like that. So, very, very, very exciting. I don't know how long it takes to ship. I saw some people say that they got their message on Thursday and they had it by Monday or Tuesday or whatever. So I don't know if I'm doing my math right. That means if I placed my order Monday morning, then perhaps I get it by Thursday or something like that. Anyway, that'll be nice as there'll be people in here, as I said, smashing the shit out of these walls. So I'm looking forward to all of that. Let's see here. Why don't we take a brief break and then we'll get back and we will talk about video games? I'm thinking we'll talk about video games on the other side of this a break. I don't know if you know this about me, but I was something of a drinker for, I don't know, 10, 20 years, somewhere in there. I was doing my fair share of drinking, perhaps slightly more than my fair share of drinking. But you get to a point where it's like, hey, I'm going to slow down on this. I had kids, and so it was like, well, what if I got to drive them somewhere? What if I got to do something? But also just, I was not springing out of bed the next morning the way I used to. And at some point, you just go like, hey, you know what? I've got too much going on. I don't have time to blow half a day feeling like garbage and all that sort of stuff. So, at some point you're like, hey, forget it. I'm just not gonna drink, not gonna do any of this, and just like, it's just not worth it. Well, hey, there's a new answer to helping you spring out of bed in the morning, helping you avoid those rough patches. It's called Z-Biotics. Here we go. What is Z-Biotics? Now, Z-Biotics pre-alcohol probiotic is the world's first genetically engineered probiotic. It was invented by PhD scientists to tackle rough mornings after drinking. Here's how it works. When you drink, alcohol gets converted into a toxic byproduct in the gut. And it's this byproduct, acetaldehyde, not dehydration, that's to blame for your rough next day. Z-Biotics produces an enzyme to break this byproduct down. So it's designed to work like your liver does, but it does it in your gut where you need it most. Just remember to drink Z-Biotics before drinking alcohol, and drink responsibly, and get a good night's sleep to feel your best tomorrow. And that's all it takes. It's these tiny little bottles. You just crack one open, chug it before you have your drinks. And that's pretty much it. Hey, try to get a good night's sleep like you always might, all that sort of stuff. And you'll be bouncing out of bed, raring to go, and it's nice. You can, you can go out and do things, and be a bit of a social drinker again. That's the thing that I was kind of starting to shy away from. It's just like, I'm just not even going to go. Cause it's like, I know if I go out, I'm gonna have a few drinks, and it's just like, and then like, I have too much going on in the morning to even do this. Even just drinking around the house, they're just like, forget it. No, who has the time? Well, Z-Biotics is here to give you that time back. And now you can give Z-Biotics a try for yourself. Go to zbiotics.com/Jeff to get 15% off your first order when you use the code Jeff at checkout. Z-Biotics is backed with a 100% money-back guarantee, so if you're unsatisfied for any reason, they'll refund your money, no questions asked. Hey, the 4th of July is right around the corner, and it's a drinking holiday. It can be, if that's your thing. So, hey, you got to get that order in to have your Z-Biotics by the 4th. Order a pack for you. Order a pack for your friends to make sure you get it all in time. Remember to head to zbiotics.com. That's the letter Z, BIOTICS.com/Jeff and use the code Jeff at checkout for 15% off. And thanks to Z-Biotics for sponsoring the episode. And we're back. Hello. Welcome back. All right. Science of video games. Let's get into it. Neon White. It's speedrunning video game. If you, I think, there's a lot of people talking about like how much they love Neon White over this last chunk of time here, and maybe not always being super upfront about what that game is. And so far it's pretty short levels. Later on, I'm sure it's going to get a little bit longer, but like it's these short bursts of platforming, first person platforming, some shooting along the way. You have a sword as well, but generally it's like, okay, you've got to get from point A to point B. Sometimes you've got to kill enemies on the way, and you've got to do it as fast as possible. And the faster you do it, you kind of unlock additional levels and additional tiers of benefits. And so at the highest tier, you get to see the global leaderboard because you're, maybe competing somewhere in that thing. But also earlier on, it's like, here's a hint about how to get through this level. And so it'll show you like a breadcrumb trail about like, hey, here's another path that maybe you're missing. And so it's not brutal in the way that I think some of these kind of speedrun leaderboard focused games can be. The story's not really doing it. So, I think the basic idea, at least so far, from what I have played is you are a demon. You have been sent to hell, but you're working for heaven to eliminate some even worse demons, and whoever does the best on that front, gets to get out of hell and get into heaven. So you have like, you meet Neon Yellow early on, but you're Neon White. You have a face mask over your face that they claim will explode. Do you ever see The Condemned, the Stone Cold Steve Austin classic? Or perhaps Battle Royale, the whole explosive collar thing. It seems like sort of something like that. I don't know. That's about as much as I want to engage with the story. It's really not landing for me so far, but aesthetically, I appreciate its look overall. And I started playing with a controller and then moved to mouse and keyboard, which did improve my times for some of the levels that required shooting. But basically you are kind of collecting different weapons and abilities along the way, and those are helping you get from place to place. So they manifest as, so it's an important distinction here. I know we like to have fun around here. The issue with video games that have cards in them is not the cards themselves. It's the deck building. It's the beforehand sitting there and staring at a deck and figuring out the strategy and all that other stuff. That's the stuff I tend to not want to engage with. But these are just, these are cards that you're picking up in the level like they're any kind of power up and whatever. So they manifest as cards, but they are not necessarily. It is not a deck builder. Up front, people should know that it really is just kind of, when you pick up an item, you can kind of toggle between them a little bit, so you can use your sword if you need to, and all that sort of stuff. The first one of these you pick up is just a gun, and you shoot with it, and then when it runs out of ammo, you need to pick up another card to get more gun. You need more gun juice. And the second one of these that you find is, it's a pistol that also enables you to double jump. Naturally, of course. Why wouldn't this be the case? And so this leads to situations where but you can only double jump once per card. So you were kind of like double jumping to get another card and then immediately jumping in the air. And so you end up with these kind of acrobatic things that are strung together. I've seen someone try to compare it to the first level of Titanfall 2. The kind of tutorial kind of speed run sort of thing where you're doing all the wall running and all that other stuff. And it's not entirely, it's not unlike that stuff. That's a pretty decent comparison. That it's a bunch of levels that are built like that. And then they put little collectibles and other things in them that you can go out of your way to get. And so for that, you need to figure out like, okay, how do I, there's one I don't know even how to get it because it's up on some ledge and I don't know where to go to get. I don't know how to get that. Eventually I just moved on, but it's the sort of game where you're running these levels over and over again. And when you're getting good at these levels, they're like 12 seconds long, 13 seconds long in some cases. So, it's neat. It's got a really good feel to it. And a lot of the levels are kind of, at least so far, are set on top of water. And when you're on the water, you move super fast. So it's this thing of like, okay, well, I can kind of skate on the water for a little bit and then jump out of here. And that's kind of an indirect path, but it gets me there faster because of how much speed I'm getting on that water. And so there's a lot of interesting little considerations around that, like little tricks that you'll discover and that the game will point out to you. So that's the thing, you're ranking up from like bronze, silver, gold, and ace medals. And every time you fill up a meter to get to the next medal, or get a time that's the next medal. Actually, I'm sorry. I think actually the two things are separated because every time you finish the level, you'll get a little bit of insight to fill up the bar. And so you can kind of grind your way to the hints and stuff like that. But eventually you get a thing where it's like, okay, there's a pickup in the level. And when you get it, it will show you a ghost-like or a little trail of like, hey, you could do this and double jump this way and get up to where you want to go much faster. And to me, that's one of the key things that prevents this from falling down a serious rabbit hole of like, this is not something that's going to appeal to a wider audience. Like that makes it much more accessible, I think, for a lot of players, or I think it will make it much more palatable to a wider audience, because you can get to a point where you're like, oh, okay, all right, that now I'm learning about ways I can get through these levels and learning hints about this level, and then that will help me think about the levels in the future about like, oh, well, if I could do that here, then clearly I can do this and do this and do this, and I think that's just a really smart system, and it's probably one of the most fun I've some of the most fun I've had with this style of like speed run level, speed run platforming kind of thing. When you widen speed run out into a wider category, I definitely see some people in the chat mentioning Trackmania, and yeah, Trackmania is not, again, not an incorrect comparison point. And in some ways, it makes me wonder, like, oh man, what if then you're just playing Shootmania, I guess. I don't know, but what if they made this multiplayer? You got 60 players doing it, all this other stuff. and all trying to grind out the fastest times and all of that sort of stuff. I think it plays well with a controller. And so like if you're playing on, and it's on Switch, right? Is it on? I don't know off the top of my head if it's on other consoles. But I'm sure it's fine on Switch. And you know, again, I played the first handful of levels with a controller on PC, and I was like, you know what? I'm probably, as the shooting starts to pick up a little bit, it's like, okay, I want to shoot quickly, and I'm definitely going to aim and shoot faster with a mouse than I will with the right stick. I think they might have some slight assists on there if you're using the stick, which makes sense too. But yeah, Neon White is something that's definitely worth checking out. I think, you know, the trailers when that stuff came out, it was like, okay, aesthetically, this is really fascinating. It's got a really neat look to it, and I don't know that I have a good handle on all the trailer was just all this acrobatics and all this stuff. So it was like, okay, is this just a really high speed platformer with some shooting? And then you realize, oh, these levels are chopped up super tight. So it's just like, here's a very tight chunk of shooter platforming, more platforming than shooting in the early going for sure. And then you kind of move on from there. And yeah, I think it's really worth checking out. You should definitely give it a look. Also worth checking out, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Shredder's Revenge. Pretty sure this is everywhere. I've been playing it on Steam. It's also on Game Pass, so you can play it, I believe. Yeah, it's on PC Game Pass as well as console Game Pass if you are so equipped. You know, those Konami Ninja Turtles games are really good beat 'em ups, really good brawlers. And that's a tough genre these days, because it can, you know, it's the sort of thing where it's like you're taking a very arcadey kind of game and bringing it into more modern expectations for replayability and complexity and all that sort of stuff. And I think they do a really good job with this. I had a rough start with it. I jumped into it and picked Leonardo because he was just kind of average in all the categories. And I was like, okay, well, I was a Donatello guy in the Konami games, in Turtles in Time and in the original Ninja Turtles, because I liked that range. But the range and speed trade-off was pretty harsh, even in those games where it wasn't, you know, I don't know, it wasn't always didn't always feel like a massive penalty to pick the guy with the long stick when it comes to wind up and hitting and all of that sort of stuff. Here they're definitely kind of, it feels like they're just building the turtles with a lot more diversity in mind. Like they play a little bit differently. They all have similar moves, and like they did with Streets of Rage 4, you know, they've added abilities and attacks and stuff like that in ways that give you, like, you have an anti-air attack, and so you have a bit of a launcher, and you can, you know, dive kick out of it and all that sort of stuff. And that's been nice, because I picked Leonardo and got in because it's just like, okay, Swordman, he's got decent range. They're swords. It's a decent speed, decent range. He's literally like 2 stars across the board. And I found that first level with Leonardo super boring, and I was like, oh man, I don't know. Like, this seems okay. I like the look. Like they are catching the vibe of those games in a very loving way. But my first impression with that was like, geez, man, that was just kind of flat. And so I went back and started over. I mean, you level up the turtles individually, but I went and said, like, okay, Raphael seems like maybe I need to pick something with a little more pizzazz, a little more panache, a little padache, if you will. And Raphael was super fucking fun. Like, he's basically got a dragon punch, and he can dive kick out of the dragon punch and do, you know, it's like all the moves are very similar across the turtles. but his combo, like I didn't feel like his range was limited per se. He felt like he just had good speed about him, though I think Michelangelo is technically the fastest of the 4 turtles. Raphael's got a suplex that's fun. And then I played through those first 2 levels again with Raphael, and I was like, okay, I love this game. This is great. This is super fun. And just started having a much better time with it after making a different turtle choice, which I did not expect, because again, I feel like when you go back to those Konami games, the turtles are different, but not that different. You get very limited range with Raphael and that sort of stuff and all that. But yeah, I was very unsure about it at first, and then after going back and playing some more of it, it's pretty kick-ass. And I haven't tried any kind of the online. It's got multiplayer, and like it's got 6-player multiplayer, which is wild. Like it's that X-Men game or something. And you know what? Now that I think about it, I haven't even scrolled through the character. I assume that means that does that mean Casey Jones and April are playable out of the gate? I'm not even. Yeah, I need to go see who's available, who's unlockable, all that sort of stuff. Yeah, I had a really good time with it. I like the look of it quite a bit. They catch a lot of the. They're making a very loving homage to those Konami games, right? It's manhole covers that you can fall in, and then they utter a line. It's pizzas that you pick up to get your health. It's you getting 1 point for every kill that you get on normal enemies and all of that sort of stuff. But it's also a game that presents you with a 21-page move list. It's 1 move per page, I guess I should say. It's not like it's freaking Tekken or something, but it presents you with a lot out of the gate in terms of like, hey, do a combo by smashing X, and then you can do this type of throw this way. It's all like pretty innate kind of 2-button-y kind of things. But out of the gate, presenting you with all that sort of stuff, I was like, oh, okay, all right. That's a little, kind of hits you over the head with a little bit out of the gate in terms of how to play it. And I don't know, maybe that's something they could have rolled out later. The turtles level up, and that'll give you, more meters to use the super more frequently, or to store multiple levels of your super attack. Or additional health and stuff like that. But yeah, I don't know. They did not just take those Konami Turtles games and like Streets of Rage 4ify them. It's not as direct as that. Like you definitely see like, okay, this was developed with a similar mindset perhaps that went into going and making Streets of Rage 4. But I don't know. It's a very different feel, but I guess I would say that Streets of Rage and those original Ninja Turtles games also have a pretty different feel too. So I think they capture the feel of those Turtles games. And if you think about those Turtles games, what they were then, they were not very complicated games. They were not very technical games. That's not to say that you could not play them and get a lot better at them by playing more and more of them. But, the number of moves at your disposal and all that sort of stuff. And, it's meant for you. Like, that's a post-83, post-crash kind of arcades going through a weird time. And so they decided, well, what's a way we can get arcade machines to make more money? Oh, what if we made them hold more players at the same time so that we've got 4 people putting money in at the same time instead of just 2 or 6 or, what have you. And so those original games were just designed to suck money out of you. I mean, as all arcade games were, right, to an extent. But a lot of those brawlers are meant to just be like, all right, fucking Shredder's here, and he's gonna do his mind thing and turn you into a baby turtle, and you should probably put some more quarters in, dummy. And you're like, all right, I guess I gotta. I mean, we're at the end of the game. I can't not finish it now, right? Like that's what those games are. And so recontextualizing all of that sort of stuff into like, obviously, this game's now just coming out console first, all this other stuff. They're not trying to suck money out of people. You know, it's a very different reason for existing, and they've made a more complicated game to go with it and all that sort of stuff. And they put challenges in there. Like, clearly they want you to get good at it, because I think one of the challenges in the first level is beat the first level without taking any damage. And I'm like, all right, I'm probably not going to get that for a while, because you're getting jumped from behind and there are foot soldiers everywhere and all other stuff. But at the same time, it does seem attainable. That you go like, oh, I could probably put the work in and clear this without getting hit a single time. I'm not going to do that, but some people will, and good for them. I have not tried the online. Some folks in chat saying that maybe the netcode is not awesome, which is totally unsurprising to me. It's this netcode situation that we are in as a world, as a planet of, you know, whatever. I am not a game developer, so what the hell do I know? But games coming out and not having good netcode, it's a bummer. But again, if this is a 6-player game, if you're filling up a game and all that sort of stuff, then you are, you know, you've got a lot of syncing up to do across clients and all that sort of stuff. I'm sure it gets quite difficult, much more difficult than a one-on-one fighter might be, for example, if you've got 6 players in there at the same time and all that sort of stuff. But yeah, okay, yeah. I mean, some people are saying they haven't seen any issues. I mean, that's the thing with netcode, right? If you're just jumping in with strangers that live who knows where, who knows how it goes. If you're playing with friends that live up the street and you're all on the same thing, you know, then obviously that's why they invented the term "your mileage may vary." But yeah, I don't know. I intend to play some more of it. It looks like you unlock some additional kind of bonus levels along the way and stuff, and you're finding secret diary pages and newspaper headlines and all of that sort of stuff. It did make me kind of want to go back to Streets of Rage 4 again, because as I was unlocking characters there after finishing the game, like those characters were way more engaging than the characters that I was able to start with at the outset. But maybe I'll stick with this because, you know, it sounds like you get Casey Jones after beating the game, and maybe Casey Jones is different and crazy too. That would be nice to see. So yeah, heck of a game. It's on Game Pass. I'm pretty stingy isn't the word. I don't know. Like I for a lot of years, I think the thing I've said time and time again is that the brawler genre is just fucking done. That they could not find a good way to transition that style of game into modern console games. And that led to games like Fighting Force for the PlayStation. Like that I feel like was in a lot of ways the death knell of that genre, when fucking Fighting Force was coming out for like PlayStation and N64, and it was like, God, this just sucks. It's so bad. None of the tension of the arcade games is here. You are just knocking it out in like a couple of sittings and going like, well, I guess I paid full price for this fucking thing, and moving on. And it just yuck. Fighting Force. So it's been nice to see companies and developers and stuff try to do a lot of different things. And it seems like generally the thing they're doing is like, well, what if we made the fighting more complicated? Not to a fighting game type degree, or anything like that, but what are the ways that we can kind of move in that direction? People saying Die Hard Arcade. Die Hard Arcade was cool for what it was. Was Die Hard Arcade the last good classic brawler in arcades? Like, what year was that? That would have been after the Turtles games. That would have been... So maybe, yeah, I don't know. Maybe Die Hard Arcade. Die Hard Arcade with its freaking cutscenes. Die Hard Arcade with its QuickTime events. Die Hard Arcade is Shenmue 0. And then and it's a good point that that Yakuza kind of picks up some of the brawler DNA along the way as well. And so you've got different developers approaching that style of combat in different ways. I think if you really wanted to widen that definition out, you start to get into the Dynasty Warriors games, and maybe we're right back to me saying that genre is dead and terrible because they're still making these goddamn Dynasty Warriors games. All right, no one wants to think about Dynasty Warriors. No one. Trust me. I finally was able to acquire Siphon Filter on the PlayStation 5. Whatever was locking players out of it for that first week is now functional. And so if you want to play Siphon Filter on a PlayStation 5, I'm pretty sure you can do that now. Last week, if you were watching the stream, I played the first level of Siphon Filter on the Mister, which plays PlayStation games quite well. And that game is cool. Siphon Filter is cool. I don't, it's an interesting curiosity to go back to now. I don't know that it necessarily holds up great as a modern video game, but boy, it sure is fun to zap people with that taser and set them on fire over and over again. What is Siphon Filter? God. I mean, it came out, it was like 99, it was like late 90s, so it's like post Metal Gear. It's these it's open zone gameplay. Basically, Siphon Filter is the direct inspiration for Sonic Frontiers. And but it is an open, the level is not super linear. You can kind of run around this space and accomplish your tasks in order, but you kind of can get lost along the way, and you have to look at the map every so often and figure out where the hell you are and all of that sort of stuff. It actually, with the list of objectives and the kind of space that you can move around in, it did sort of remind me of GoldenEye's campaign. When I was going back to it, I was like last week, I was like, oh, you know what? This is kind of slightly reminiscent of the way GoldenEye handled its campaign levels. Whereas at the time, I think it was a much more post Metal Gear Solid, because it was like, I'm a spy, but it's a third person shooter. You're running around and shooting people, and then occasionally you have gadgets, and occasionally you got to hit a switch to open a door and do some stuff, and so you can go check that out now with, I guess, whatever weird high-res texture texture smear they're applying to all those PS5, PS1 games. I forget who recommended it now. I think it was someone on the Discord. In our quest to check out all of the kind of post-Vampire Survivors games, I played a little bit of a game called Gunlocked, which is on Steam. It's like $4. It's an early access, and it is a top-down vertical scrolling space shooter, but with that mechanic of you're picking a loadout of weapons and some additional perks that can modify those weapons, and so there's no fire button in the game, I guess, is the thing. It is not like it is not 20 minutes till dawn, which has a fire button or a fire mechanic. It is just you working on cooldowns the same way Vampire Survivors is. It's just you are constantly scrolling, and so you can get like a rail gun that's like, okay, when I position myself in front of an enemy at a certain range, it will notice that and it will charge up the railgun and fire. You can have a radar sweep that goes around and locks onto enemies and automatically shoots. And so it's really about, picking a variety of different weapons, up to 4, I think you can have total, and building your loadout and then finding whatever augments and other things that you want to equip that will modify those things and synergize well and eventually become this increasingly monstrous death machine. And because it's got that kind of roguelite sort of thing, you are, unlocking more things along the way. Basically, they're like research meters. They're in-game achievements that when you complete them, that will unlock additional perks that you can equip and other things like that. So, for example, I unlocked a perk that allows me to... So when I take damage, it causes an explosion that does like 50 damage or something like that. But I take 2 more points of damage for equipping it. Every time I get hit, I take 2 additional points of damage. So there's a bit of a trade-off on that. So it's like that's something you can equip or not equip, and you can set those things up before you go into a run. It is a neat little game. The same way Vampire Survivors was a neat little game, and I feel like at some point became a neat, very big game. In terms of popularity, I'm in terms of size and scope, it definitely is still fairly little. But yes, Gunlocked. Give it a look on Steam. It's pretty neat. I don't know how much longevity it has because I've only done a few runs, so I can't sit here and tell you that the late game has a ton of content right now or anything like that. It is still early access. But yeah, go and give that a look. It was also demo week over there at the Steam website. Checked out Midnight Fight Express, which has been showing very well in trailers and all that sort of stuff. And I am really happy with how Midnight Fight Express plays. It is... it controls very well. Like I was coming into like looking at the trailers, you wondered like, is this a highly technical, like, is this going to be more of a Sifu like, or is this going to be, something that is the combat like super complicated? But no, I find it incredibly easy to pick up and play. You've got a basic attack. You can roll. You can pick up items off the ground, like very standard stuff, isometric style. Beat 'em up kind of game. You are working your way room to room, and beating the shit out of these guys. It is the combat feels very good. At times it does that sort of Batman-esque thing of floating you from enemy to enemy. In fact, I think it's another game where you're kind of unlocking additional perks. So between levels, you can upgrade your character. There's a skill tree. There's a bunch of other stuff like that. So you can kind of unlock things that will let you glide over to other enemies and that sort of stuff. You eventually will start picking up guns off of people. And guns don't feel entirely unbalanced. You only get a certain number of shots with them, and then you can throw the gun, which is always fun. And you have to double tap everybody to put them down. And yeah, I don't know, an interesting setting where you are clearly some kind of highly trained, weird mercenary person who lost their memory because a drone shows up and start like a flying drone. A drone. We know what a drone is now, right? It's not. I mean, I feel like the word drone has been around for decades, but now it means something very different than it used to. A drone shows up and tells you what to do, and then sticks with you as your buddy and does all the talking and all of that sort of stuff. And intriguing setting, good character customizability, and all of that sort of stuff. I think that demo is still, the demo event ended yesterday, but I don't know if the demos went away. It looks like the Midnight Fight Express demo is still available. And that's out in August, which is pretty soon here. So that's pretty exciting as well. Good soundtrack so far, fits the action really well. Again, looking over what you can see of the skill tree and perks and some of the things you can eventually get as you play, it seems like there's some meat there, and that's pretty cool too. I also played Slayers X. What the full title of Slayers X is. Slayers X Terminal Aftermath Vengeance of the Slayer. And so this is the game. This is the game from Hypnospace and from Hypnospace Outlaw. This is the game that is referenced in there. And Slayers X is it's a Duke Nukem like, I guess, is what I would say there. It's a new old shooter. It's a good goof. and you are constantly, it's Zane, right? Zane is the dude's name. I swear, I hate that I forgot that. But you are basically doing retro shooting type of stuff, and then the joke is that, you know, the player character as Zane is kind of talking to you, is talking the entire time, a lot of voice lines and stuff like that. And it's awesome that we're at a place where a game like this can exist, period, point blank. Like it's cool that like we can kind of like this funny, relatively smallish joke from Hypnospace Outlaw is something that can be like turned into some kind of full-fledged product. I don't know how many fake Duke Nukems, how many fake build engine games, how many fake old shooters I want to play. And so that makes me think, like, what do I want out of this game? What do I want out of Slayers X, the game that is like a joke spun out of a very awesome Hypnospace Outlaw is an incredible game. If you haven't played it, you should go check it out. It's just a fascinating thing. But yeah, there are a ton of first-person shooters. There are so many, and also like when you get to this point where you're starting to make games that are deliberately old feeling, then you kind of like the gameplay maybe isn't always going to be the hook. And so for Slayers X, that hook is the universe, and you care about the writing, and you care about some jokes. And so my curiosity there is, how long do you think Slayers X ends up being? Does Slayers X have a price yet? How do those things kind of line up? How long is that joke funny? How long can you kind of maintain that thing that makes you willing to play through? Like it's a average to kind of it's the gameplay itself I found to be kind of whatever. You're like, okay, yep, I'm shooting. It looks like crap, and that's funny on purpose. But like, there are so many of those that are taking it super seriously or whatever. That it left me kind of curious. Like, what does the final product here? Like, what is the goal? Right? Like, does it end up breaking out of this first person shooter thing and become some other thing entirely? Like, does it go places per, quote unquote registered trademark? And become something other than an old school first person shooter? Does it, is it really short so it doesn't overstay its welcome? Is the writing great enough that it can be longer and still work? Like, these are the questions I'm left with. And so, yeah, I think the only reason you'd come to it is like, okay, I loved Hypnospace. I loved that vibe. I love the writing. I trust, I trust that this will be worth my time because of how good that game was, and let's see how it goes. But like, those are the questions I was left with coming out of that demo. Is there going to be something else here? Is there something, like what's really going on? Or is it just like, hey, we thought we would make a shooter, and then how long is that shooter? And how much material is being written to make that shooter funny and worth playing? Because the gameplay itself, I just think you can find better first person shooters, new and old, right? Or deliberately old, fake old, whatever you want to call it. Retro as an aesthetic, like whatever label you want to put on that. I think it's awesome that we're at a point that stuff can exist at all, and that there is anything resembling a market for like that style of shooter. But yeah, I think the question it leaves me with is like, where are we? What are we doing here? And that sort of stuff. So right now I think it's like I am compelled to check out the final version when it comes out. Specifically because I feel like I have a great deal of trust in Hypnospace Outlaw and what that game did. And I hope that this kind of pulls it off too. So we'll see. Yes, Slayer's X. I believe that demo is also still available. Again, the hardcore demo fest, whatever the Steam demo zone. I typed in Slayer and it came up with Gauntlet Slayer. Remember when they did that? Remember they did Gauntlet? Remember they made a new Gauntlet in 2014? And it wasn't anything. It did not successfully evoke old Gauntlet. And it did not successfully turn it into a good Diablo style game. Not a great game. Not a great game. Anyway, that's me typing in random words on Steam and talking about it. Why don't we take one more break, and then we'll come back, and we'll get into the news after this. This podcast is brought to you in part by Blue Chew. Blue Chew. Whoa. Let's think about, let's not think about that. Let's think about erections and getting them and using them. Confidence can take you far in life and can also help in the bedroom, especially when it comes time to step up to the plate. And that is where Blue Chew comes in. It's time to bring the heat. It's summertime. You know what I mean? And hey, the temperatures aren't the only thing that's rising this summer. You know what I mean? Do you get me? Well, hey, if you don't get me, then maybe Blue Chew is for you. What is Blue Chew? Blue Chew is a unique online service that delivers the same active ingredients as Viagra and Cialis, but in chewable tablets and at a fraction of the cost. So you can take these chewable tablets with you wherever you go. You can take them anytime, day or night. Plan ahead or be ready whenever an opportunity arises. The process is very simple. Sign up at BlueChew.com, consult with one of their licensed medical providers, and once you're approved, you'll receive your prescription within days. The best part, it's all done online. So no visits to the doctor's office, no awkward conversations, and no waiting in line at the pharmacy. Blue Chew's tablets are made in the USA and prepared and shipped direct to your door in a discreet package. No one has to know. Or hey, you know what? If you're cool with it, you can shout it from the rooftops. You get out there and be like, my Blue Chew is here. Who's ready for some fucking? I don't know. I don't know how you do it. Everyone's got their own methodology for letting the world know they are ready to get it on. For me, the rooftop method is proven, not the most effective, but it doesn't mean I'm going to stop doing it. I got to let the world know when it's time to get going. You know what I mean? So if you're interested in getting rock hard and you could use a little assistance in that, you could use a little extra confidence, as they say, Blue Chew could be for you. And we've got a special deal right now for you, the listener. Try Blue Chew for free when you use the promo code Jeff at checkout. Just pay $5 shipping. That's BlueChew.com, promo code Jeff, to receive your first month free. Visit BlueChew.com for more details and important safety information. And we thank Blue Chew for sponsoring the podcast. All right, we're back. And we're ready to get into the news. Tony Hawk broke his silence. Professional skateboarder, world superstar, actor, worldwide spokesperson for skateboarding. I was going to say the sport of skateboarding, but for me, as a non-skateboarder, skateboarding is a way of life. It's an art. I look at skateboarding as an art. And sometimes it is weird to me that there's all these skateboarding contests and Olympic whatever and all this other stuff. I think that skateboarding is a form of expression, but I guess you could say the same thing about figure skating and such. Tony Hawk got on a live stream with Andy THPS, long time, hey, he's got THPS right in his name. That's how you know he's serious. That's Andy Gentiles, formerly of Vicarious Visions, talking shop with Tony Hawk. Who said that? This is from Polygon's recap of said live stream. Thank you to Polygon for that. That Activision had been planning to do Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 3 and 4 after 1 and 2 was done, right up until the shipping of Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 1 and 2, that there had been plans to work on a follow-up to that, presumably encompassing the levels and gameplay of Tony Hawk 3 and Tony Hawk 4. Of course, I think most of you probably know how this story goes. Vicarious Visions, the developers of Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 1 and 2. And by that, I mean the recent remake, not the original Neversoft classics. They got absorbed into Blizzard and became known as Blizzard Newark or something, Blizzard Jersey, whatever it ended up being. And as such became Albany, Blizzard Albany. That's what it is. Yes. Thank you to Sigma Factor in the chat. And so they started working on, I guess, Diablo, and whatever else Blizzard is up to these days. I don't know. And so that led to Activision looking for other studios. That was not enough for Activision to completely back away from the project. Again, this is according to Tony Hawk, who seems like he would know. And Activision did spend some time taking pitches from other studios to do the work, and apparently they were not happy with any of the pitches. And so that was it. They shut down the project before it even really got going. And there you have it. The quote from Tony on this was, "Who knows, maybe when all the dust settles, we'll figure it out." Which I feel like if you're Tony Hawk and you think about the roller coaster that Tony Hawk has been on with these video games over the last 20 plus years, you probably do take that long view of hey, I don't know, who knows? This series was deader than dead, and then 1 and 2 came out, so who the hell knows? This sucks. I don't know what else to say about this. I mean, I feel like this is not a huge shock or a huge surprise that, Vicarious becoming part of Blizzard was going to lead to, or I guess that this project was ever on the table, right? That the idea of okay, 1 and 2 is really awesome, and we should definitely follow it up with more. We should definitely keep this going. Because I don't know. I guess I don't know for sure. But in my mind, these are probably not the most expensive projects in the world. Remaking and remastering Tony Hawk 1 and 2. I'm sure it took a lot of work, but at the same time, it's probably doesn't take as many people as it takes to ship Call of Duty every year, for example. This I don't know. This hurts, but at the same time, I hurt back when Vicarious got absorbed. So I feel like I already kind of went through the stages of grief on this one, and this is not a huge shock. This is kind of what you assume happened. I guess to me, the only surprising thing is that they actually looked for other studios and tried to do pitches and tried to find someone to do that work. But as Tony says, maybe when the dust settles, they'll figure it out. And I wonder, it would be, I can only guess. To me, it seems like it would be a really good hearts and minds sort of thing for Xbox, for Microsoft to do. Assuming that everything goes through and they take control of the Activision brands and that the acquisition goes down and that Xbox is now in charge of Activision, starting sometime next year. I feel like if I were and maybe this is why I'm not. Maybe this is actually a bad idea from a business perspective. I don't actually know. But I feel like if I were the person sitting in the driver's seat over at Xbox, I would be like, yeah, try and keep that studio together, because Blizzard Albany is going to develop Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 3 and 4 when we get in there. So just send a quiet word that like, hey, please don't leave the studio. we need your brains to make these to make this game happen, or whatever. It feels bad, right? It feels bad to hear this news. Even knowing that this is probably even, you know, it's not hard to guess that this is how that went, right? But damn. Anyway, yeah, if I were Microsoft, I would make more Tony Hawk games. And then I would think about, is there a good way to make new Tony Hawk games? Is there? That's a good question. Is there a good way to make new Tony Hawk games? Because Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 5 didn't do it. I guess like that's the answer is like you strip it all the way. You don't try to go like what's going to be our awesome new feature? We're going to go in slow motion and let people flip the board all crazy, or all the things they did over the last 4 basically anything after Thug 2. Anything after Thug 2 did not add to that franchise. And so maybe you just take that exact gameplay, you go take some of the folks that slap together is shitty. Some of the folks that worked on Thug Pro, perhaps, which is a tremendous mod. If you happen to have a totally legitimate copy of Thug 2 for the PC, you can install a mod over the top of it called Thug Pro that basically adds a ton of levels from across the franchise, and you can play it online and keep that going. It doesn't, the story stuff doesn't really come in there. So if you're trying to do objectives and trying to do all that sort of stuff, you don't, you're not going to get that per se, but you can get on there and you can play a good ass, probably the best, most complete Tony Hawk game that there is. And then I think people have put like the first level of Mario 64 into it as a skatable level. I don't know. There's a bunch of weird videos out there of all kinds of crazy stuff happening in there. So like that stuff's out there still happening. You can still do that. It would be awesome to see a legitimate Tony Hawk 3 and 4 remake and all this sort of, if nothing else, put Bam Margera back on the map in a positive way. Can we help Bam Margera? What can we do to get Bam Margera back on his feet, back into I hope Bam can thrive. I hope wherever Bam is, I hope he can dig himself out. I hope he can help himself to help all that. Anyway. They should make more Tony Hawk games. What they should do. Here's what they should do. They should do this Tony Hawk 3 and 4 thing. And then they should do Thug 1 and 2. And then no more remakes. And then try to make another new Tony Hawk game. That is what I think Microsoft should do with that franchise, is give us 2 more of those remakes. Not to say that the games that came after that were bad. I remember liking Project 8 and American Wasteland well enough. So American Wasteland was 7, and then Project 8 was 8. Right? Or am I I don't know. Anyway. And then, yes, of course, put the ride board back out, put out a Ride and Shred remake, because why wouldn't we do that? Anyway, Forza Motorsport, they showed it. It looked quite nice, and they said, hey, and at the time, this did not register with me as like something that was attempting to be a burn, and I guess, well, maybe not a burn, but a differentiator in the marketplace. But Turn 10 got out there and said, like, yeah, this has ray tracing in game. You can do ray tracing while you're driving the cars. And I was like, yeah, of course. Why are you? I forgot that Gran Turismo came out and does not have ray tracing while you're driving. The ray tracing is only in like replays and some other stuff like that. So that led to people being weird because it's the internet. And so my questions coming out of that were actually more about the frame rate and resolution and all of that sort of stuff. And so over on xbox.com, they posted a kind of a brief Q&A, with some light detail about the game. And they are saying that it will run at 4K 60 on an Xbox Series X and 1080 60 on an S, both with ray tracing. And that was my big question, because if you think about the Forza games over the last handful of them, there's been trade-offs, right? Of like, oh, well, I can choose performance or I can choose graphics. And so if I want 60 frames a second, maybe I don't get ray tracing or something like that. But they are claiming that Forza Motorsport will give you ray tracing at 4K 60. I assume there is still going to be some kind of toggle, right? Because it's a modern console game and they all just have those now of like, oh, do you want like better ray tracing? Or do you want a more stable frame rate? Do you want to run it at 1440 and get 60 more frequently? Or I don't know. They are not giving any more detail than that right now, but you have to assume that like, oh, if you have a very good PC that can handle all that stuff, you're probably going to still want to play it there. And all that sort of stuff. And, you know, how much does ray tracing really matter? Ray tracing, when ray tracing is cool, when Raymond Tracing comes to town, when Ray Romano shows up and goes, the lighting, it can be very awesome. It can like it can look quite good. It can be a really cool dynamic thing. And they're trying to talk about time of day as a big thing. So, you know, that's a good way to kind of take advantage of that lighting, but it's not like you're going to sit there in these levels and just make time of day scroll really fast like they do in their tech demos in ways that show off the lighting and all the other stuff. Like, you know, I'm sure the lighting will look great, and all that sort of stuff, but it's not like past games that have not had ray tracing. You were like, this lighting is garbage. You know, there are ways to trick that stuff, especially in a driving game where you're kind of always moving in one direction and all that sort of stuff. But, well, I don't know, whatever. Again, I'm not a game developer. I think ray tracing, when it's good, it's really neat and does add to the experience. But it is not the end all be all either. And, so I don't know, like we'll see how it goes. I think from my perspective, it's more just like, okay, like they're saying it's going to have this and you're still going to hit the resolution and the frame rate. And so that to me is the big deal, is if you can give me all those bells and whistles without me having to turn a bunch of other stuff off or make a bunch of compromises. I think that's where I'm at with it. And again, that's, you know, hey, I bought a 3090, like, right? So of course I'm going to be the guy who was like, I tried to spend my way out of this problem, of having to think about what these compromises are. And so I'm still, but at the same time, like these consoles are still relatively new, and it was a bummer to me when they launched and it was a bunch of games like Spider-Man and Forza and just like stuff across both machines that were like, hey, do you want the ray tracing or do you want the speed? Do you want 30 frames or do you want 60 frames? Because the answer is fucking 60. Like 9 times out of 10, the answer is going to be 60. And so like you can have all these cool bells and whistles, but if I have to cut the frame rate and have to get there, like what are we doing? What are we doing? So we'll see. This they are, that's all they're saying so far. And again, I wonder if it will still have some kind of toggle and what the trade-offs might be in those console versions of Forza, especially on an S. And then I saw Video Games Chronicle was claiming they had screenshots. They also did not confirm that the game was coming to Xbox One. But Video Games Chronicle claims to have some screenshots of that version that leaked out. And so that would indicate that perhaps it is going to come to old consoles, unless they did that test and they were like, hey, everyone hates this. It looks like trash. So let's just kill this version and go forward. I don't know. We'll see how, weird that they're being cagey about it. That doesn't seem like it seems like if you're going to do those versions, you just say you're going to do those versions. But maybe they're still making decisions. Maybe they got a version up and running and they're like, hey, are we happy with this at all? Or is this just terrible? And so maybe they're still making some decisions on that front. We'll have to see. You figure, hey, the game's going to come out on PC anyway, so it's going to support a wide range of hardware at that point. So, maybe they can still get away with doing an Xbox One version or whatever. The wait is over. The Dragon's Dogma 10-year anniversary video finally came out. We're all very excited. If you watched the Capcom stream that they had, was that last Monday? Was that the Monday before that? Boy, time is weird. Anyway, they talked about Resident Evil and they talked about Exoprimal, and then they came time for their Dragon's Dogma segment, and they just got up there and said, like, we've got a 10th anniversary Dragon's Dogma video coming pretty soon here that you're going to love. Thank you for watching. And an amazing moment. An amazing moment in non-announcement history, but we got there. June 16th, 2022 will go down in history as the day that they finally said, yes, fine, yes, we're making Dragon's Dogma 2. This led to me reinstalling Dragon's Dogma 1 on the PC. A game that I found very creepy looking because of the way you climb around on the monsters. You look like a little critter. You look like a little weirdo climbing around, skittering around on the monsters, doing your blah, 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 blah. It's just a crazy fucking look. You're just a little guy. You're just a little guy climbing around on the dudes. And it's fun. It's just a bizarre, weird looking thing. And that's all I remember about Dragon's Dogma. I remember playing it and going like, I don't know. And having, not having the best time with the combat. Obviously, people have been raving about Dragon's Dogma for about 10 years now. And so there are definitely times when I want to give it another shot. And so I have reinstalled it, and we'll see. I don't know if the PC version is the right one to play, but that is what I have. They did not give very many details on what they are doing with Dragon's Dogma 2. They just said, yes, we're making it. It is being made using the same engine we use for everything now, which is that RE engine that is Resident Evil and Devil May Cry and the next Street Fighter and all that sort of stuff. So yeah, it's coming from some of the same folks that worked on that first game. So there's some continuity there in terms of development. And this was a game that leaked out a long time ago because if you remember correctly, Capcom is incapable of not leaking what they were doing. And so Dragon's Dogma 2 was on some, I feel like that was on some list like years ago now, right? So maybe not a huge surprise, but they're going to do it. And that's about all they've said. Do they even give it? Sorry, let me load up this Did they even give a date? No date, no platforms. So, hey, they're gonna make a new Dragon's Dogma. They should probably do that. Seems like that is a. If you think about it, like the world we live in now and the sorts of games that have been popular, the rise of Dark Souls, Bloodborne, Elden Ring, like that style of game becoming bigger and bigger and bigger. Not that Dragon's Dogma was a direct analogy of those games, but in some ways, I think that maybe this paves the way for, I think, a wider audience to at least be open to the idea of a Dragon's Dogma 2. I will say. Almost simultaneously, if not actually simultaneously, Square decided to hold a Final Fantasy VII anniversary stream. And as a part of this, Final Fantasy VII Remake Integrate came out on Steam. They announced that Crisis Core, of all things, is getting an HD remaster. Crisis Core was that PSP game about Zack. And not cool Zack Island Zack of Dead or Alive. That would be... I would play that Zack game. And so, yeah, I don't know. So, okay, if Crisis Core is getting a remake, does that mean that the story and characters of Crisis Core will matter more to the Final Fantasy VII Remake trilogy? I say as someone who remembers very little about Crisis Core. But yeah, it seems like that they will perhaps tap into that more and more. Otherwise, why do it, right? They also named and confirmed the second game in the Final Fantasy VII Remake trilogy. They're calling it Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, and it'll be out next winter. That means either late 2023 or early 2024. And also they stated that the third part of the trilogy, which they did not give a name to, is in full production. So, it's, hey, once you get the first one out of the way, assuming you're going to go in and make 3 of these and they're at least somewhat similar in terms of engine and tech and all that sort of stuff, that you can maybe save a little time on the next ones. Who knows how long it'll take them to turn part 3 around if part 2 is coming out late next year. Yeah, that's the question remains: will we see Dirge of Cerberus rear its head? Nomura also stated, again, this is from a Polygon recap, that he wants Rebirth to be something players can enjoy even if they did not play Remake, which I think that was the Mass Effect thing they tried to do when Mass Effect was coming out, of like, hey, we want more players to play these games than played them before. How do we do that? Because if we're just making a sequel to that last game and continuing that story right where it left off, then we're not going to sell a single copy more than the previous one sold. In fact, we can only sell less. So the quote here is, in fact, new players might even enjoy starting their Final Fantasy VII journey with Final Fantasy VII Rebirth. Cloud and his friends embark on a new journey in this game, and I believe that the scenes that they witness after leaving Midgar will give players a fresh, new experience. So that's a hard, that seems like it's typically a hard trick to pull off when you are trying to make something that is so storyline connected as this game is. Not that Final Fantasy VII Remake is some big choice-based thing the way Mass Effect promised to be, but just in terms of widening that player base and all that other stuff. Like, how many people go like, yeah, I'm going to start with the second one. It's a hard trick. It's a hard trick to pull off. For sure. You know what's not hard? Announcing video games. Saying, hey, this is the next video game we're going to make, and this is the next video game we're going to make after that. Todd Howard of Bethesda fame has gone ahead and announced yet another video game. Todd Howard is basically signed up for the next 20 years of his career. Todd Howard is this is he is given the order of operations here for what's going on. So Starfield, you've heard of it. They showed it recently. It looks, I've been thinking a lot about Starfield, actually. Let's talk about Starfield for a minute. I think Starfield is compelling. I think Starfield seems like a game I want to play. Starfield also seems like a game that is very much rooted in the exact style of systems and gameplay that this studio has made for decades now. And I don't know that I feel that the addition of space and space combat will necessarily add a lot to that game based on what they have shown. That said, it looks nice. I have played all of those games. I hope that it is not buggy when it launches. That's the thing for me, is like, as someone who will probably play Starfield at or around launch, I just want it to work. Fallout 4 did not work especially well when it first shipped, especially on PlayStation 4. And so my hope for Starfield is for it to be a complete experience and for it to be I was going to say functional, but more than functional. I want to have a polish to it. I want it to just work. I never want to think about the technical aspects of that game. I just want it to work. That is what I want out of a Bethesda game at launch. I know they all get there eventually, but come on now. It has been a very long time with these games shipping in the state that they almost always ship in, especially on consoles where you can't just overpower some of the problems with juice. That's I feel like that should be a modest ask in this day and age. I realize it is not. I realize that especially as these games grow in size and scope, they only get harder to make work. But God damn it, man. Come on. Let's just make it work. I mean, hey, at least there won't be there'll be one fewer version to put out, I guess. Maybe that will help. So anyway, I don't know. Starfield, like I don't necessarily want to engage with base building because that stuff just gave me flashbacks of the Fallout 4 base stuff that I thought was abysmal. So what are you going to do? Back when they first started talking about Starfield, they also decided to get out ahead of themselves and say, hey, we're also working on Elder Scrolls 6. And you're like, yeah, of course you are. And they're like, but we have nothing to show about that. And you're like, yeah, of course you don't, because you're in full production on Starfield. Like why are you even saying this out loud? Like, I get that like people online are like, when are you going to do another one of those? And the answer should be like, fucking leave us alone. We're already working on another game. So I thought we were like free and clear and that's like safe and like, okay, yeah, no, they've got Starfield announced and they're working on it. It's got a date and hopefully it'll hit this current date that it has, of I guess what, spring. And then Elder Scrolls 6 will happen after that. But how long after that? 5 years? 8 years? So Todd Howard decided, well, I don't know. I shouldn't say Todd Howard decided. This was probably a calculated, I'm sure probably bounced this off of people, right? So like, oh yeah, and after that, we're going to do Fallout 5. Fucking why would you say that? Why would you put yourself in that type of, okay, why would, there's no need to say that. This was in an IGN interview. The sentence here that Polygon.com has from Michael McWhorter's recap is, yes, Elder Scrolls 6 is in pre-production, and we're going to be doing Fallout 5 after that, so our slate's pretty full going forward for a while. We have some other projects that we look at from time to time as well, but they do take a while. I wish they came out faster. I really do. We're trying as hard as we can, but we want them to be as best as they can be for everybody. So, let's do some math here. So, okay, Skyrim came out in 2011. Fallout 4 came out in 2015. Starfield will come out in 2023. That is 8 years after the release of Fallout 4. You can kind of edge that down a little bit and say, well, they also were on 76 to some extent, and so they did some work there. That work, as I understand it, was spread out. So let's look at the Skyrim to Fallout 4 gap. That's 4 years. The Fallout 4 to Starfield gap will be 8 years. But you also look at that's probably some lost time on Fallout 76. That's probably trying to prop that thing up, and then that thing being a mess when it came out, and probably like a lot of stuff happened around then. So maybe you don't necessarily think it's going to be 8 years until they ship their next project. But on the other end of Starfield, let's assume a 5-year turnaround. Let's assume a 5-year turnaround and not an 8-year turnaround. So that means Elder Scrolls 6 in 2027? Maybe they're getting better with the tech as time goes on, and maybe they can stay more focused and that sort of stuff. So, I'm sorry, not Skyrim, but the next Elder Scrolls game. So maybe that's 2026? If you're alive, if we're still here? And then now Fallout 5 on top of that. So does Fallout 5 come out in like 2031? Do games take longer to make in the future or less time to make in the future? Asset generation seems like it is making some games take longer. COVID is obviously taking a lot of time and causing a lot of slowdowns and such, that I sure hope by the time we get to 2030, we are not still thinking about that fucking shit. So is Todd Howard just willing to just sign up for the next 10 years? It's got to be a different chunk of hardware. Like there's a hardware transition in there too, probably, right? So then they've got to ramp up on whatever the next Xbox is. It's just that's a crazy concept. To get out there and announce, like, to call that many shots back to back is just really wild for me. I don't. It's really nuts. To kind of just drop that here in 2022 when you are still finishing up one game and you already have your next game lined up, and like maybe the teams will continue to grow in such a way that those games are in production kind of somewhat concurrently or something like that, and maybe Microsoft wants those games faster, and so they are willing to throw the money at them to grow those teams. Not that you can just like throw money at those problems and they'll definitely get faster, because you've got to train all those people up, you've got new production processes, you've got a bunch of other stuff going on there. And selfishly, I know Obsidian announced like 9 different things, but there is a part of me that was like, well, what if they did a Fallout game? I sure would like that a lot better than the other Fallout games. But yeah, you've got Outer Worlds 2 coming out of them too. And Outer Worlds 2 seems like it could be pretty awesome. Outer Worlds 1 was a really good blueprint. It was a really good way to make one of those games more limited in scope, and a lot of that game just straight up functioned. And you're like, yep, they made one of those and it worked. That's cool. I don't think the back, let's say 2/3 of it, I think that Outer Worlds kind of got the writing and stuff just didn't, the gameplay, like that game didn't hold up end to end. It started really strong, and then I feel like a lot of the later planets were a little more bang, 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 zoom, zoom, just like taking your, just blasting through them pretty quickly. Like it just needed more content, honestly. So hopefully Outer Worlds 2 kind of course corrects in that specific way, because I think that, like, generally speaking, that was a neat game. A very neat game. Speaking of neat games, A2MR, or AM2R, sorry. The Metroid 2 remake. That team is working on a new game. They are going to reunite. This is according to Video Games Chronicle, under the name Squid Shock Studios, and they are working on a game called Bow, Path of the Teal Lotus. And it is a hand-drawn Metroidvania title that it says here is inspired by games like Hollow Knight and Okami. I think that was, remember when that Metroid 2 remake came out and Nintendo shut it down, and you were like, man, seems like this team should just make their own new thing. Well, they are. And that's pretty awesome. It sounds like they started with a couple of people in 2021, ran a Kickstarter, and have added more people to get their thing going. And they're planning to be on PC and Switch in 2023. I think that's rad. I think that's super rad. That the fan remake thing is always a little weird, because you're like, man, you're putting all this talent and all this time into this thing, and I get it, it's a labor of love, and they can take forever to do it because it's maybe not their day job and all the other stuff. I like the idea that this has led to some original development and all that sort of stuff. So that's Bow, Path of the Teal Lotus. Due out next year. And yeah, I don't know. It looks cool. Give it a look. There's some limited assets out there. Pokemon Snap is coming to the Switch this week. That's just my alert to you that the original Pokemon Snap will be a little bit more playable if you are so subscribed to the Nintendo Switch Online expansion pack. And that'll be playable this Friday. That new Pokemon Snap was cool, but also I don't know, it didn't hit for me as hard as I was hoping for after all these years of like, oh man, Pokemon Snap is back. I don't know, it didn't. Hopefully you can take your Switch to the Blockbuster and still print out your photos. I mean, hopefully they've integrated that functionality. I know they've done such a great job with all their emulation stuff that, of course, that functionality must be there, right? Right? No? Okay, well. And in our final news story, also, I guess, Nintendo-related news. This comes from Deadline. Deadline had a sweeping interview with the head of Illumination. That's the Minions people, right? That's his name is Chris Meledandri, and he was speaking to Deadline at something called Cine Europe. And there's a little bit of Chris Pratt Mario stuff in here. And here's the chunk of that bit here. I'll read it here. Regarding any upset over casting the non-Italian Chris Pratt as Mario in the upcoming Super Mario Bros. Movie, Meledandri asserted, "When people hear Chris Pratt's performance, the criticism will evaporate. Maybe not entirely. People love to voice opinions, as they should." Like, he caught himself and went like, oh no, wait, I'm just setting people up to talk shit if I say that. But they'll still talk. They'll still talk shit. He added, I'm not sure that this is the smartest defense, but as a person who has Italian American heritage, I feel I can make that decision without worrying about offending Italians or Italian Americans. I think we're going to be just fine. It's just a great sentence. It's just a great sentence out of this guy. I mean, look, what do you think, Chris? Okay, now take that sentence, take that into consideration, what he just said. What do you think Chris Pratt is going to sound like as Mario? Like, Charles Martinet he is in the movie in some form as some kind of cameo, or he has some kind of role in there doing something. I don't know what. Maybe he voices Wario. Who knows? Is it allegedly? Oh, that's right. Allegedly the narrator. Okay, it's me, the narrator. Is it just Chris Pratt talking? Because if it's Chris Pratt trying to do a Mario impression, that sounds brutal. And I agree with the sentiment that you just wouldn't want Charles Martinet doing that voice for 90 minutes. You know what I mean? Like, that wouldn't work. That just wouldn't work. And so you get to a point then where you're like, oh, I guess maybe Mario shouldn't talk and he should only say, it's a me, like, should Mario just be a character that only just speaks in those types of catchphrases, or is he a silent protagonist? That'd be weird. That would be weird. And so it's interesting that he is building up this Chris Pratt performance even bigger. Like, I feel like there's perhaps a lot riding on it already. I think some of the stuff, not all of it certainly, but some of the flack they caught over Chris Pratt not being Italian, some of that seemed like it was a little bit tongue in cheek from some folks, but some of it definitely was not. And so he even says, I'm not sure this is the smartest defense. He basically says, I don't know, this seems like it's dumb for me to say, but I'm part Italian, so I can do this, right? Like, really? What? Really? That's your defense? So it's like they're just kind of stacking this, they're raising the stakes ever so slightly here by saying, like, that criticism will evaporate because Chris Pratt is so fucking good as Mario. Get fucked. He did not say get fucked, but speaking of the partnership on that film with Nintendo, Meledandri called it the fulfillment of a really important objective. Like, what? That sounds like something a CEO would say. Nintendo is one of the companies we respect and hold in high esteem. This collaboration, I think, is unprecedented in its closeness. The fulfillment of a really important objective. Objective complete. The whole concept of a Mario movie just felt so fraught and dumb out of the gate. And I feel like every time we hear more about it, whether it was the leaks, about the nature of the film itself, or the casting of Mario, really, I feel like the casting itself, actually, I don't have a huge problem with it. I think it really is just Chris Pratt as Mario that's just like, really? Like, what do you... Nick in the chat saying that Sonic sounded bad too, to be fair. I don't think so. I think Ben Schwartz did a good job there. And yeah, this is Nintendo kind of getting it back, right? This is Nintendo in a much more of a clout position than perhaps they were last time around, where they just went to Hollywood and said like, oh, I guess you guys know. And then they came out with that freaking fever dream nightmare of a Mario Brothers movie. And so this is Nintendo getting a do-over and being able to kind of say like, okay, we're Nintendo now. We were Nintendo then, but honestly, we are even more Nintendo now. We have even more power. We have even more, we have the ability to call more shots in this sort of stuff. And we are going to make sure that our hands are all over this thing and that you're not going to take our property and go screw it up. If anyone's going to screw it up, it's going to be us. That's the Nintendo motto. But gosh, I still can't get past that whole thing of like, what is the Mario voice? And it's not about Chris Pratt. I think, there's been a lot of people talking shit about Chris Pratt for a long time, and I get it. That dude just seems like he sucks or whatever. I don't care. Like that, whatever. Like I do not care about Chris Pratt. I refuse to. But like, again, like what is that role? Like what is the Mario role? What is the right answer? Like if it's not Chris Pratt, then who is it? Because I don't, because you think about like voicing Mario, playing Mario, doing the voice of Mario, a character that is well defined. If you're not going to go get the original Mario voice, which again, I don't think that flies for 90 minutes. It seems like an impossible problem to solve, I guess. So yeah, I don't know what the right answer is here. I don't. Yeah, James Corden. Yes, that's of course, James Corden. Oh, Post Malone. Yeah, okay. Post Malone. These are all good suggestions. Looking at chat on both my side monitors here, and people are just typing in names here, and these are all. Danny DeVito maybe would actually work out pretty well, I guess. Yeah, Jeff Goldblum, he'd nail it. No, yes, Father Guido Sarducci. Yes, get him. Well, I feel like I, under normal circumstances, would know his real name, but I don't. I do not have it on the tip of my tongue right now. Yes, Dave Mustaine. MTV political correspondent Dave Mustaine. Yeah, it just seems like a very hard problem to solve. Mario is such an iconic character, and he is not iconic for his speech per se, but he does speak in a very specific way, and yeah, I just don't know what you do there. I don't know that any answer would be the right answer. So from that perspective, I go like Chris Pratt, sure, I guess. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know what I don't know what you're. I don't know what you're trying to do there, really. Or I guess I know what you're trying to do. You're trying to find a good voice for Mario. It's just that doesn't seem possible to me when we think about the parameters of the Mario voice. Anyway, I could keep saying this same sentence 9 different ways in increasingly confused voice, but maybe we just need to move on and see how it goes. I don't know that a Mario movie sounds all that interesting, but I would have said the same thing about Sonic the Hedgehog, and look at that. Those movies are doing well. I am inching ever so closer to watching the Sonic the Hedgehog films, but it has not happened yet. So yeah, I don't know. We'll see. Hey, how's about we get into some emails, huh? Podcast@guard.bike is the email address for you to send your emails And I have pulled a handful of them. I'm looking, a few new ones came in over the last half hour or so. Let's look at some of those. Okay, so let's see here. We're going to start with, I need to be better about I'm starring emails as like, these will be good for the podcast. And then I'm not unstarring some of them. So some of them were from last week, but I didn't read them last week. And I just need to be better about clearing out the ones I read so that I don't accidentally read them twice. You know what I mean? Bruno from Lawrence, Kansas, asks, what's the best game you can think of where they did it and it's out today? Like, what's the best like shadow drop, hey, this is out now sort of thing? Bruno, I am going to say that it's the Sega Saturn. That's probably the weirdest one, when they're like, and that Saturn's out now. You're like, what? I got to get out of this trade show and go buy a Saturn, I guess. Because that was weird to drop a whole platform that way. And so I went from that trade show home and then was like, I gotta go get a Saturn. And got one, and then brought it home, and I believe I played Street Fighter the movie, the game, for quite a bit. Some people saying Apex Legends. What else? Yeah. Yeah, Apex Legends is a solid one. But yeah, no, the Saturn, the Saturn launch was weird because the games that came out at launch were not awesome. Well, whatever. Panzer Dragoon's a classic. It was just not that difficult to complete. And so it was one of those games that you buy and bring home and you're like, oh boy. Yeah, Tetris 99, that's another good one. Capcom versus SNK, I don't think that went that way, did it? But yeah, when that Saturn came out, and it was crazy across the board. I mean, whatever. Like it's been analyzed to death in terms of how much that kind of screwed over Sega's chances, and how Sony had a perfect response to it that really kind of threw a bunch of dirt on the Saturn's grave the day it was shipping. And all of that sort of stuff. They really had a hard time. They really had a hard time with the Saturn. Again, that's something that's been cataloged and interviewed elsewhere. But boy, that thing didn't launch. Did not launch super well. Did not have enough games at launch. Did not have enough great games at launch, and didn't launch at every retailer. So retailers that were left out of that initial wave were left pissed off too. So. Yeah, I don't know. They made a series of bad calls launching the Saturn, but it still was cool to be able to go like, oh my God, it's out right now. I can go get one. And then it wasn't long before I was like, I got to get a PlayStation when those come out. Whenever those come out, we got to get one of those because that seems cool. The Saturn. Well, I played a lot of Street Fighter, the movie, the game on the Saturn. Back in the early days, that Batman and Robin game that Acclaim did in arcades, I had that on Saturn. That game sucks, but I played it quite a bit. And if you just kind of did a quarter circle forward over and over again and hit the kick button with Robin, he would just do cartwheel kicks forever and ever, and you would just do like 900 hit combos. And every time that game comes up, that's all I say about it, because yeah. Andrews asks, recently controllers and computer use have started to hurt my hands in a way that they never did all my life previously. Curious if you've ever had wrist or thumb issues with controllers or PC use, and what has worked for you to prevent those things. I have not had major hand or wrist issues with keyboards or with video game controllers and stuff like that. The only hand issues I ever have is from having big phone. From buying big phone, there's a certain amount of like my thumb stretching all the way across the screen because I'm one-handing the phone and trying to reach certain spots and all that sort of stuff, and just the reach on the thumb. If I find myself using my phone too much over a course of a week or something like that, I will definitely get to a point where I was like, man, my fucking thumbs feel like shit. But that's about it. Some people are saying get a pop socket. My wife has a pop socket. I hate it. Works for her because she's, setting their phone down all the time. My phone's in my pocket all the time, so it's constantly in and out of my pocket. The pop socket catches on the pocket. It just sucks. It's a pain in the ass. No thank you, pop socket. But the pop socket is very useful in specific situations. Rob writes in and says, can you share your top 5 Atari computer games from when you were a young dude? Mine are as follows. These are Rob G's top 5. Mr. Do. It's a hell of a game on any platform. Dandy, which he played co-op with his brother. Dandy was, I guess, the inspiration for Gauntlet, I think is how that worked out. So it was a Gauntlet style game on those computers. Popeye. There's a tremendous version of Popeye on the Atari. This is the Atari home computer. This is the Atari 400, the Atari 800, the Atari 1200 XL. It's basically the same guts that went into the Atari 5200, but it had a keyboard and a disk drive, and it was a computer, basically. The 5200 was a consoleized version of that hardware that had a really shitty analog stick that fucking sucked, but basically played the same games. Not the same cartridges, literally, but the same basic software. Boulder Dash and Donkey Kong, that's a tie. Yes, Boulder Dash, that's the version of Boulder Dash I certainly played. And Trivia Quest, a weird multiplayer trivia game, board game, RPG. Check this one out. I'm not familiar with Trivia Quest. But yes, that's a great version of Donkey Kong. That's a great version of Boulder Dash. That's a solid version of Popeye. I found a $100 bill on my lawn in the early 80s as a child. And I used it to acquire Pac-Man for the Atari home computer. And that was a pretty decent version of Pac-Man as well. There's a game called, it's called Castle Hassle. But also I believe it was called Action. There's a few different versions of it with some pretty similar, gameplay where you're a silly little ghost. It's a game called Action Quest. And you're a ghost going through these different little puzzly levels and move, you snake back and forth like a ghost would as you're going, ooh, but you can shoot. It's like Venture. You remember the arcade game Venture? Of course you do. And I think Action Quest is tremendous. I think it was a sequel that was called Castle Hassle. There's a game called Crazy Shootout. That's K-R-A-Z-Y, Crazy Shootout. That's a Berserk clone that has awesome sound effects. I've streamed that a couple of times over the years. That game is rad. And so yeah, and that's also the version of Pooyan I played the most. And I'm probably also the version of Lode Runner I played the most. Lode Runner's a hell of a game. Ben in Boston writes in and says, do you ever use the PlayStation 5's activity cards? I occasionally use them to start a game since it can be faster to load straight onto an activity or mission, but other than that, I completely neglect them. Do you think they'll stick around? Are they actually good and I'm just being forgetful? I forgot that they even existed until this email came in, because I feel like most of the PlayStation 5 games I'm playing don't even really use them. So if you're unfamiliar, this is, this was one of the things they touted pre-release when they first started showing off the UI of the PlayStation 5, was like you could hit the PlayStation button and it would pull up these long lists of different activities. It would say like, here's the activity you're doing, you're 40% complete, it's going to take you about this long. And it's like, here's this side, like Spider-Man would use it really well for like, hey, you could also do this side quest, and you can hit the button and it'll kind of warp you there, warp you closer to it, and kind of let you do it. And some of the first party games use it. It's an interesting idea that in some limited cases is like a better fast travel system than the games have on their own. But a lot of games don't use it. Like a lot of third party games don't use it, or they don't use it in a way that lets you kind of load in faster and do your thing. And I don't think that they will stick around. I mean, well, I think that the first party games will keep using them, but I wonder if at some point, like, when do we get the big PlayStation 5 UI refresh? The like, oh, hey, half these new features we came up with are not getting used by third party, the trophy hints and some of that other stuff. Like, what are it needs more. And I don't know that they'll necessarily do a full UI refresh across the board, but I still think that a lot of that horizontal scroll stuff that they do in the in-game kind of sub-menu stuff, I think really sucks. It's just not useful. And the new features that they added, I don't feel are all that useful either. I think that the way, and also just some of the terminology and the way they've unified stuff, not that this matters a great deal, but I feel like all the messaging stuff being in the game base is weird. I don't know. It's a weird system. The UI stuff is strange. I think the Xbox, the current Xbox interface is also pretty weird. It's just a weird that I think people have gotten used to, because they haven't changed it in a pretty long time. But yeah, that's a good point. As they bolt on features like the new PlayStation Plus and some of the different games you can get that way, the UI for the store and all that sort of stuff just continues to feel more and more out of date. It's harder than it should be to get at those games that you now have access to as part of those higher tier subscriptions. And so they just need to do a better job on the storefront as well as on the console's UI. I think there's a lot of work that can be done there. But I don't know, the whole XMB thing dating back to the PS3, I guess. PSP. Anyway. I've never loved it. It's fine. It's functional enough, but I don't know. It's just never seems like it's been especially great either way. Let's see here. Kurt writes in from Mississauga, Ontario. It says, you mentioned on the first episode of the podcast that it would be nice if the industry started going with a shorter time frame between announcement and the release of a game. I think this totally makes sense given how extra tough game development seems these days and how often release dates can get delayed and pushed into the future. On the other hand, there's been discussion over the years about how secretive game studios try to be before a game is announced at all. I'm going to paraphrase here, but yeah, sometimes it's years before a project is officially unveiled, all that sort of stuff. The movie industry is pretty upfront about projects being in development. Deadline and Variety run articles all the time saying this actor and this director are putting together that project and it'll be in theaters next year and so on. But again, those production times are not usually as long as the dev cycle of a AAA game. Do you think there's a happy medium? I think, yes, this is something we talked about a little bit, but I think satisfying both ends of that, right? Where you want things to be less secretive, but also you kind of, I think it'd be better if games weren't necessarily announced in a major way until they were pretty close to where you're not having to delay them, to where you're showing them in a relatively polished state. You've got something meaningful to show. It's not just a CG trailer and nothing else to it. And I think balancing that out with like the whole like the weird secrecy that the video game industry can have is a hard one. And so maybe you end up in this situation where what Todd Howard is doing is actually the right way to do it going forward. Where he can just casually say like, yeah, no, we're going to do Elder Scrolls and then we're going to do, you know, Fallout. Like, don't ask me. I mean, you don't need to, you know, there's nothing to, I don't have any, I can't answer any questions about this thing that is like, just on some roadmap somewhere. But yeah, that's what we're going to do. What? Maybe that'll end up being the right way to, you know, to announce games, having the next Grand Theft Auto announced as part of a earnings call, you know, and just have them just basically be like, yep, we're making Grand Theft Auto 6. We sure are. Fucking duh. Hey, guess what? We're going to make another Spider-Man game. Especially with how sequel-driven everything is these days, right? Like, you don't... Well, that's not a secret. It's like, yo, really? No shit. The popular thing that you made, you're going to make another one of those. Well, that's bold, but all right. I think there's room for surprise. Sometimes I think there's I think there can be room for surprise when it comes to like, hey, this long dormant franchise, yes, we are going to do another one of those. But I don't know what the right way to do that is. Everything leaks. The longer it goes, right? If you've got some game out there that's 82% complete, that you haven't announced, it's going to leak out, right? I mean, then that's eventually going to leak. So, you know, maybe it's a mix of just like very casual, like, yes, this team is working on an unannounced action shooter project. This team is working on the next great role-playing game from BioWare, you know, or like maybe you don't always have to say the franchise or whatever. It's like, yep, this team has another game in the works, and maybe that's enough to kind of shut people up to a certain extent. Like that was the confirmation of the next Elder Scrolls to me when they made it on stage while they were talking about Starfield. To me, very much felt like a shut the fuck up kind of moment, in terms of like, hey, we're getting a lot of questions. This Starfield game that we're working on is leaked a lot, and we're here to talk about that. But also we keep getting a lot of questions about the next Elder Scrolls, and fucking yeah. Yes, yeah, we're going to make one. Fuck. Leave me alone. Like maybe that's not a terrible way to do it. You know, because it talks in wide strokes, right? So like, yes, yep, we're going to make another one of those. What's it going to be? Fuck if I know. I'm working on the space game. Hey, there's going to be you can hit people with a fucking mace in it. Like, what details are you going to give? You know, like, yeah, man, you're going to fucking club a fucking wizard. Wizard's going to be pissed. You're going to club him, hit him, kill him. You get a knife that's magic and it freezes people. You can freeze somebody with your ice knife. You stab them with the ice knife. There's a chance they'll freeze. Maybe you upgrade the knife and it freezes more often. I don't know. What are you going to do? You can ride a horse. You can shoot a bow and arrow while you're on a horse. I don't know. Like we're thinking, maybe. Is there going to be dragons? Yeah. Well, we did a lot of those. Maybe. Fuck. I'm working on the space game over here. So we got guns that shoot in space and we got spaceships that fly in space and planets that are technically in space. But yeah, no, I got all kinds of ideas about what we'll do with the next Elder Scrolls. There's going to be thieves, and you can talk to them. You can talk to these thieves. There'll be assassins of some kind, and you can talk to them. You can talk. You will upgrade your character over the course of the game. Like, you will find your character near the end of the game to be more capable than that character was at the start. I don't mean to blow your mind, but that's just some of the stuff we're thinking about for Elder Scrolls 6. You can solve some things your way. Do you want to talk it out? Do you want to try to be a smooth talker and talk your way out of a situation? Maybe you could do that. Or maybe you just got to run in there with a sword and cut some guys and solve it that way. It's up to you, is my point. And, you're going to be able to do all kinds of stuff. There'll be treasure chests. Some of them will be locked. Do you have the key? No? Well, I guess you're fucked. I mean, maybe you could open, I don't know, maybe you could pick locks. Who knows? I don't know. Maybe you could pick locks. We'll see. Anyway, space, we're working on the space game. Can you pick locks in space? We're not talking about that right now. And so, that's, I think that's fine. Obviously, I would guess that they probably have, what do they have for Elder Scrolls 6 by now? Because it's been quite some time since they said, oh yeah, we're going to do that. And Starfield is, let's call it, wrapping up. There are probably people who were working on Starfield that are perhaps rolling off of it to either work on DLC content or concept art for what the next Elder Scrolls might be. Like, maybe they're having some conversations. They probably know where Elder Scrolls 6 is set, where in this universe. They probably know that, right? And some high level things like that. Maybe they've got a story in mind. Maybe there's someone over there going like, what's the overall story going to be? You're the son of, or you're the descendant of royalty, but you don't know that. What if it's that? I don't know. We did the dragon person thing already, so we don't want to do that again. I don't know. Maybe you grow up a pauper, but it turns out you're really royalty. I don't know. Did we do that already? I don't remember. I don't know. We'll figure something out. Hey, we'll get there. We'll get there. Whatever. Anyway, space. So yeah, but I don't know when, like, the whole, so I don't think there's a problem with them saying, hey, we're going to make Elder Scrolls 6 and like, I think the problem is like fan expectations, and managing that sort of stuff is really hard. And I think that, like, when they get out there and say things like, also, we're going to do the next Fallout after that, they're dooming them. Maybe they already were. I was going to say they're dooming themselves to years and years of questions about, like, so how's Fallout 5 coming? But the answer is always going to be the same thing. It just means they can answer the question now, right? Because before they have to be like, what? Well, we haven't announced that. Now they can be like, dude, that's fucking 2 games away. How's Fallout 5 coming? I don't know. The water's going to be irradiated. You have to take Rad-X to lower your rads. I don't know. Special. You get perks. You do perks. You'll do perks. But they can at least say, like, oh, we don't have anything to say at this time about that game that is definitely going to exist. They can at least be that, at least they can get on that level, right? Because it's probably true. It puts them in a situation where they can at least be truthful and say, like, yeah, no, we intend to make a Fallout 5. That doesn't mean we're making it right this second. There's a vault. You get this old-timey radio. This power armor. And, you can put on the power armor. It's a pain in the ass. It's usually not worth it most of the time, but you can put on the power armor if you want. You find it, you put on a Pip-Boy. But that's, at least being able to say, hey, yes, we're making this game and we have nothing to say about that is a little more just upfront. And I think it's better than the alternative of like, I don't know. What do we, Elder Scrolls, what's that? I don't know. I'm not here I don't know anything about that. Anyway, our space game, just to be able to say like, yeah, fucking, yeah. Some studios are going to work on new IP and all this other stuff, right? I mean, and those questions get weirder and weirder. But when you're making sequels to sequels to sequels, just say it. Just like, yeah, yep. Like, hey, guess what? Mortal Kombat 12. Not even sure if we're going to call it that, but hey, guess what? There's going to be another Mortal Kombat video game. Like, really? Really? Wow. And what's that going to be about? You're going to fight. And in this one, you can kiss, I think. This one, there's more kissing. Scorpion is a hell man, and we're putting him in there. It's fine. You don't have to, you can say that. You can say, yes, we're working on the next great game in the Mortal Kombat franchise, right? You can do that sort of stuff. It's not that big a deal. Unless you're like tying it to like, well, we've got to put this information out and then our pre-order campaign has to start. You run into some situations where studios are like trying to, and this is the even weirder situation, right? Because you'll have cases where games are getting announced super early because they're like, we need to hire more people to work on this thing. And so we're putting out a flashy trailer that hopefully attracts a lot of interest, and then we can hire some more people on the team. And that's been an interesting kind of turn in some of this stuff. Doc writes in and says, as a kid, my only exposure to the game stream media, I don't even know. I don't even know what you're saying there, Doc, was GamePro, the magazine, not the TV show. I listen to a lot of video game podcasts now, and I feel like no one ever talks about it. As a preteen/teen, I thought it was rad, especially the April Fool's issues, but maybe I'm dumb and wrong? Yeah, I don't know. GamePro magazine, I definitely would. I bought plenty of issues of GamePro in my magazine buying days. Because I just wanted to read more about video games, and sometimes you read all the other magazines, right? But GamePro, I don't know. I did not. The writing in GamePro was not always in depth, or it was, I guess. When I read GamePro, I felt like a little bit like I was being talked down to a certain extent. It's minor. It's a minor thing, and I think EGM would occasionally do this as well. But that's only because I feel like Video Games and Computer Entertainment was a great magazine that didn't do that. Like Video Games and Computer Entertainment was a magazine under Andy Eddy, and that magazine felt like it was written for people that loved video games and could, and it didn't feel like it was like, yo dude, what's up bro, like the it didn't feel like it was adults trying to like impress 90s ass slang onto kids, and you just read it and be like GamePro had a real like hello fellow teens sort of vibe to it to me then, and I was in the age range where it was appropriate. And that for me was my biggest problem with it. It was also, I always thought Game Fan was not a particularly well written book. I mean, if we're just here talking shit, you bought Game Fan because they just put more screenshots of Japanese games in the magazine than anybody else. And so Game Fan was more about like, here's a zillion shots of games that you aren't going to see anywhere else. And GamePro, yeah, I don't know. GamePro always felt like it lacked depth to me. Like I always felt like I was left wanting more out of GamePro. And like there are people who have worked at GamePro over the years that are incredibly talented writers and all this other stuff. I just never felt like, I don't, you know, and maybe some of them were writing for the magazine after I had already kind of stopped reading it. But yeah, I don't know. GamePro had the fun faces and you know, that's, I always thought that was fine, for what it was. But yeah, I don't know. When I first started reading non-Nintendo Power and Sega Visions video game magazines, which was probably around 91, 92, somewhere in there. Like EGM felt like it was the right balance of a lot of good information that you didn't necessarily get a lot of other places, and it was well written enough. But as someone who also played computer games and all that, like video games and computer entertainment to me was the gold standard in terms of like, here's a well-written magazine that that is taking this topic seriously and is not just like every game's the best, you know, like every game's the best or it's the worst. Like VG and CE felt like it was even-handed. It felt like it was level-headed. And it was well written for the most part, and they didn't always have the latest rumors. You know, EGM trafficked in a lot of that stuff a lot better than almost all the other magazines did. But yes, you know, in the pre-Next Generation days, because Next Gen came out, and I think, you know, really kind of tried to nail down that like serious game player kind of aesthetic. The paper, it was the quality of the paper that Next Gen was printed on really went a long way. You're like, this is, I am reading fancy magazines over here. Thank you very much. And yeah, Next Gen was good for that. But yeah, I don't know. Video games and computer entertainment, I thought was pretty good. I remember there was a good editorial when like Nintendo cut them off over like Game Genie coverage or something because Nintendo was suing Galoob over the Game Genie. And so when they talked about, I think it was when they talked about the Game Genie in VG and CE, like Andy Eddy wrote a big thing saying like, yeah, so Nintendo's not working with us anymore. Fuck, I don't want or whatever. And yeah. Yeah, that's that to me was always the big magazine. GamePro would have some cool stuff in it, and I would read that here and there. You'd be like, oh, I'm at the store and I have the ability to get another magazine here, and I've read all the other ones. Let's get GamePro. But for me, it was pretty much EGM, GamePro, and video games and computer entertainment, and that was it. I know there were other magazines out there, but I was not reading most of those. Kind of ever. David in San Mateo writes in and says, with Tiger Woods sort of reasserting himself in the golf world over the last few years, do you think we'll ever see a new line of Gatorade Tiger? Personally, I think the time is now. I'm going to say no. I'm going to say I don't think we'll see Gatorade Tiger come back, but there is a new type of Gatorade out that I would feel morally obligated to get my hands on and taste and try. Yes, Gatorade Tiger came out in, I guess, was that early 08 or late 07? It was just another flavor of Gatorade. I don't know. Just, if I remember correctly, it was not special. In the early days, we reached out and tried to get a Gatorade Tiger sponsorship, and we were brutally rebuffed. Ben in New York writes in and says, the conventional wisdom for why there are so few games that really let you bust up licensed cars is that the manufacturers are afraid of letting you see their beautiful high-performance cars in a terrible state. But plenty of movies have prominent product placement for their cars that get exploded shortly thereafter. What's the deal here? I think it's that Hollywood would have more clout over video game developers, and sometimes the inclusion of cars in video games ends up being more of a partnership than like, hey, we want to have this car, hey, we can go get any car. We could use yours or we could use any other car, but we're going to blow up this car no matter what. But yeah, it's yes, people in chat are saying that Hollywood pays way more money. I think that is definitely a part of that there's just a sort of different sense of scale there. Leth in the chat says, my husband works in anime merch licensing and the rules on how stuff can be used is wild and makes very little sense. Yeah, licensors sometimes will have very insane rules about what you can and can't do with their property. And yeah, generally speaking, I think car companies view video games as a promotional vehicle for their products. And in some cases that was like, hey, a Jeep can't flip. We don't ever want to see a Jeep rolling and flipping because we don't want anyone to think that a Jeep can do that. We want people to think that Jeeps are safe. I remember that being a thing at one point. And yeah, I don't know. It just seems like that's just a business deal, right? It's like as the number of dollars go up, the car companies are going to be a little bit more likely to be like, yeah, okay, cool. And that's something that Jeep's probably moved away from over the years too. I think like overall, there's probably been a little bit of a lessening, a loosening of those restrictions as the years have gone on. But yeah, it's, there's going to be it's a negotiation. Everything's a negotiation, right? So if you want to bust up licensed cars, they'll be like, okay, no. And you'll be like, well, what about this amount of money? And they'll be like, okay, let's do it. And generally when cars are blown up in movies, it is usually not in the context of, when they're truly destroyed in a film, it's, usually some action movie and like, hey, a rocket launcher blew up this fucking Aston Martin. And they're like, yeah, okay. Yeah. I mean, that's not going to happen to the average person. So who cares? But if they're like, oh, we're making a movie about a lawsuit that stems out of a car accident because the car fails and this person is hurt way more than they should have been. I'm sure a car company's gonna be like, we don't want to be the car from that movie. You know what I mean? So the usage is going to be different as well. I assume this is still the case, but I know this was the case for Ford because I met the person who did it once. But that Ford had a person who was the person that if you were a video game company that wanted to do Ford stuff, like this was the guy. And so I assume a company the size of Ford just has a licensing division, right? And they're just like, yeah, if you want to use our cars in this or that, you come talk to us and we figure it all out. So I'm sure it's like, it can be a relatively standard process as well. But yeah. Let's see. Hios writes in, we'll say, just a quick question about your thoughts on this new golden age of Capcom. Do you still think they're looking to get acquired now? Golden age of Capcom. Would I call this a golden age for Capcom? I mean, people love the RE engine. It feels like Capcom is back on the map in a way that they weren't for a little while there. Like people are really loving Resident Evil these days in a way that they kind of weren't there. And when 5 and 6 were coming out, not that those games didn't sell, but they are in a much better place than they were then. And I feel like that was the era that kind of late 360 into early Xbox One zone felt like the time when Capcom was maybe like not doing great. And I think as the story goes, like Monster Hunter World coming out and really blowing up for them really kind of changed their fortunes in a meaningful way that probably helped stave off some acquisition attempts that might have looked a lot better for them back then. So it's not, anyone shows up with enough money, like they're going to talk, right? You always have the conversation. And I don't know that I agree that this is a golden age so much as it is like, hey, Capcom's been on a bit more of a roll lately, and now people are excited about Street Fighter V in a way that it never seemed like they were excited. Or I'm sorry, they're excited about Street Fighter VI in a way it seemed like they were never excited about Street Fighter V. Even when that was first getting announced, like that sort of stuff just never felt like it was like people were not as pumped then for 5 as they are now for 6. And so I think Capcom's in a much better place right now. So in terms of just like, oh my God, this business is not doing great and we have to sell it. I don't think they were necessarily quite there ever, but it sure seemed like they were maybe like one missed expectations away from maybe being a lot more interested in that style of acquisition. But these days, yeah, it doesn't seem like they have to do much of anything. It seems like they are making games that the people want and the people are buying them. And that's all you can ask for, right? So yeah, I don't know. Hopefully they keep on that stretch. I don't know. I don't know. Like, it's tempting to go like, oh, what do you want to see out of Capcom? And go like, well, they need to do a Mega Man. I'm like, yeah, that would be cool. I would like to see some more new stuff out of everyone, honestly. And so Exoprimal, at least it's technically a new IP. I would love to see just more original stuff out of them. It would be fun to exist in a world where Capcom is making multiple fighting games and not just here's the next Street Fighter. You know what I mean? Like, think about the number of Capcom fighting games that used to exist like relatively simultaneously. You know, when you had Darkstalkers and you had Red Earth and Cyberbots and the Marvel licensed games. And then occasionally you get a Street Fighter Alpha game in there with like, you know, as mainline Street Fighter was kind of taking its break there for a bit. And then 3 came out, and Rival Schools. And then you had them licensing out or doing the stuff with Arika for Street Fighter EX. So you had like this 3D Street Fighter. I would argue that maybe they were putting out too many fighting games there for a while, but the market certainly supported it. It would not support it now. But I would love to, yeah, it would be cool to live in a world where Capcom could put out multiple fighting game franchises, or to just like do a different one, to be like, oh yeah, okay, we are in fact going to do a new Rival Schools, you know? But it seems like if we are ever going to get a non-Street Fighter game out of Capcom, it's just going to be another Marvel game. Now I know for some people, that's not just another Marvel game. That's like, oh my God, Marvel's back. Yay. I think they will do that. I think that will happen. I think that they will eventually fucking, whether they got to put enough money or pride on the table, whatever it is, to make another Marvel. I think they will do it. That's not a next year thing, or maybe it is. You know, like I don't know fucking when. I just think there will be another Marvel versus Capcom. That's all. You know, like enough people want it, and it probably makes sense for them to eventually do it. That it just seems like something that would happen. I don't know. That's more of a prediction than anything else, but I feel like it's a pretty safe one that eventually those parties will get back together and make it happen. I mean, there are a billion Marvel games now, you know, so it just makes sense at some point. Eric writes in and says, hello from Fargo, North Dakota. I'll be heading to Tokyo this fall once Japan hopefully opens up leisure travel again, fingers crossed. As a lifelong Apple guy and former Apple certified technician, I'll be looking for the Bandai Atmark. That Apple Pippin / Atmark thing was really dumb. Any places I should check out in Akihabara while I'm out there? Yeah, get a fucking Atmark. Get a Pippin. Hook up a Pippin. Pippin. Get yourself a Pippin. Get yourself an Atmark. Hook it up. Get on Web TV. Dial into Web TV. Any places you should check out in Akihabara while you're out there? Man, I wish I knew. It's been, I think the last time I was out there was 2008 at this point. And even then, Akihabara had changed quite a bit from the last time I had been out there. And so I don't know, like I think go to Super Potato but I just want, like, it seemed like some of the stuff that were like my must hit sort of places went away, and aren't there anymore. And so the other thing that's changed is a lot of the Japanese resellers of used video games realized that the internet exists. And so, you used to be able to wander around between 5 different shops and discover crazy deals and vastly different deals for similar level items of quality. Like you could buy a Neo Geo one place for, I'm just making up prices because I don't remember, but it could be like $400 one place, $270 another, and then they're roughly in similar shape. And so there were deals to be had if you walked around and looked in enough shops. I'm going to look and see if it's still there. If you really want to go down a fucking rabbit hole, you go to G-Front. They're in a new building apparently. And even, well, they've got a website now too. I don't know. So G-Front sells arcade stuff. They sell arcade boards. And so if you wanted Neo Geo arcade carts, if you wanted to start buying Naomi stuff or Adamus Wave carts or whatever the hell else, that would be my recommendation, is to go check that out. Just go look at it. Because it's just, when I went there, it was this crazy small room full of arcade boards. And then there was like a Back to the Future pinball machine that had a zillion arcade boards stacked on top of it. And it was just an insane shop. And I went in and I bought some Neo Geo carts, and some CPS2 boards and left. And so that's a, that's a fun rabbit hole to go down, but they're on they're at gfront.com if you want to see it now. They've got a blog, I guess, and a Twitter, because everyone does. They all do now. Oh wait, their Twitter is private. I don't know why. Okay, well, I don't know. But yeah, I don't know. There's the Trader and the Trader 2. I don't know if those are still there. You go to Mr. Donut, get a donut with a weird hot dog in it, assuming that's still there. I think last time I went, it had recently been on fire, and so they were closed. But my understanding is that they did open back up. But some of the good shops that used to be full of games seemed like they were filling up with more and more porno. And so, you would go to the floor and be like, this is where all the Saturn games are, right? And it'd be like, oh no, this is where all the videotapes of people getting their nose plugged while giving fellatio are. That's where these tapes are. It's a technical term for this floor. That literally happened. That literal exact thing. That's not me just making shit up. That it's like, oh, that's, why are they plugging this woman's nose? Okay, well, everyone's got to be into something, I guess. And yeah, so I don't know what's there anymore because it's been a very long time. And last time I went, it wasn't quite what it used to be. But also, you know, over this last decade, 5 years even, more and more of those companies have become aware of pricing on the internet and the ability to just export stuff to countries directly. And so the days of like going there and buying stuff for a fraction of the price you would find it on eBay and then bringing it home and having it all and laughing maniacally, I don't know if it's quite the same as it used to be. I bet if you get outside of Tokyo, you can still maybe find some of those deals. The only time we never really got outside of our area, you know, we would go to the Makuhari Messe where Tokyo Game Show took place. And that's a pretty long train ride out of Tokyo, but like we never really made it into the suburbs except for one time. We went with, I forget who all was there. Yutaka, who was the Japanese editor for EGM at the time, took us to a shop way out in the middle of nowhere, and everything was way cheaper, and it was just like less picked over, and it was just a crazy store. But who knows if stuff like that even exists anymore? You know, everyone's on the internet, and so everyone can look at eBay or Yahoo Auctions Japan, and they can figure out like, oh, this stuff is worth way more if I just want to ship it to Italy or Texas or, you know, or whatever. And so a lot of those people just started doing that. And so, you know, we kind of lost that to a certain extent. Brandon from Ohio writes in and says, hey, when frozen food directions are intended for microwave ovens with different wattages than your own, do you, 1, shorten or lengthen the suggested cooking time, 2, lower or raise the power of the microwave, or 3, change nothing and hope for the best? I usually, so I think it's a 1200 watt microwave. Yeah. Fucking power. You know what I mean? I will usually, if it says, cook it for 2 to 3 minutes, I will usually go 230. If it lists the wattage, sometimes I'll go like 245 or 215, depending on which side they're on. But no, I never adjust the power in a microwave. When it says stuff like, all right, put this in the microwave and put the microwave on defrost for 2 minutes and then put it on 50% power for 8 minutes. I'm like, fuck you. No, what? If I wanted to follow cooking instructions, I would cook for real. I am doing this because I am a dirtbag. Do not hit me over the head with such heady instructions. Tim from San Diego writes in and says, I'm going on my honeymoon in Alaska for the next 2 weeks, and one of my first stops with my new wife will be to the International House of Hot Dogs to get a reindeer hot dog, which, as far as I can ascertain, is exactly what it sounds like. Do you imagine my hot dog eating experience will be pleasant or downright terrible? I would also love recommendations on condiments. Well, Merry Christmas. I don't know. I mean, I assume reindeer probably tastes like venison or something, right? Like it's probably not too far off. It just literally is just deer meat, right? Never much cared for venison. Never really cared much for fancy hot dogs. But I bet it'll be fine. I mean, you already know kind of what you're getting into there, assuming it's similar to deer meat. What would I put on it? I don't know. I'd put the same thing I put. I just like, you know, if I like a chili cheese dog first, I'll say that out front. But if you're getting some kind of different meat, you probably want to taste the meat. So I would go light on it, so that you can have that experience. Maybe take a couple of bites and then fill it full of I don't know, sauerkraut and mustard and whatever you're into. I don't know. I'll just put ketchup on a hot dog. I ain't above it. Give me a pretzel bun. I like a pretzel bun. You know, something fancy for me. I'm a fancy guy. I like fancy things. But yeah, I don't know. I'll fucking eat a hot dog plain. I don't give a fuck. I don't give a fuck. But yeah, usually I'll just squirt some ketchup on it and be done. That's usually where I'm at with it. But if I'm feeling like making a mess, and you know I am, chili cheese dog for sure. All right, we got a few more here. Let's see. Oh, right. Yes. David from Texas wrote in. Zachtronics announced their final game, Last Call BBS. It's coming out next month on Steam. And it looks neat from what little there is to see. But he says, hey, apparently Zach, of Zachtronics fame, applied for and got a teaching job at a university, and so the company is disbanding, I believe. I can't recall the last time a company folded on their own terms and released a final farewell game like this before. Have you? No, I can't. Like, releasing a farewell game, that's the difference, right? Because I feel like Vlambeer kind of folded on their own terms, right? I mean, they kind of went like, okay, yeah, we did what we want to do here, and we're kind of wrapping it up. But they didn't necessarily put a game out at the same time. I like the idea of calling it Last Call, in a sense. You know, since they're putting it out and shutting down. Yeah, the Steam. So this is out July 5th. Boot up your Z5 Power Lance and Z5 Power Lance and dial into the Last Call BBS, the last game from Zachtronics. The barkeeps loaded up his retro computer with a full set of puzzle games for you to download and enjoy. Download and play. No need to worry about copy protection. They're all fully cracked and ready to enjoy. And then it shows some kind of Gunpla assembling mini game in here, among other things, as well as Solitaire, as well as a really cool Commodore 64 looking Cracktro screen. Yeah, I don't know. This looks like pretty awesome. The Zachtronic games are a thing that I typically respect from a distance, as I am not smart enough to excel at them, but boy, I love that they exist. And yeah. Mark writes in. This is a hard road that Mark has gone down here. Out of nowhere, I developed an immediate and intense desire to buy a PlayStation TV and download all of my old digital Vita games while I still can. I stumped up the £110 for a mint PlayStation TV, that's more than the original retail, and £70 for a 64 gig proprietary card. Brutal. After jumping through all the hoops, I began downloading my old library, only to find that most of my old games are not compatible with the PlayStation TV. I suppose at this point I should start trying to fashion this email into some sort of question, but really wanted to share my utter disbelief at this absurd case of what the fuckery. Having said that, I would be interested to hear your thoughts on the Vita, PlayStation TV, proprietary storage, and the legacy of the Vita. So, Mark, yes, the PlayStation TV, as shipped, as it exists in an official capacity, sucks. Sucks. But you can do some stuff to it. I don't know. So you can do things to Vitas, including a PlayStation TV. I still think of it as the Vita TV because I bought mine from Japan. I just never recognized that it was called the PlayStation TV for whatever reason. So I don't know if every single model of firmware is downgradable and hackable, and I don't know where the Vita hacking scene is at these days. But one of the things you can do with a PS TV is replace that whitelist that prevents your other games from running. And so you could, in theory, run all of those games. Whether they will work or not is a totally different story, because obviously back touch and, like the controls are not one-to-one, and, there's just a variety of reasons why a Vita game might not run well on the Vita TV. My understanding is there are also methods to replace the Vita storage card with a straight up SD card. That sounds more complicated. I don't know anything about how that works. Because like you, I went and bought the expensive large storage card. And then, once you've kind of opened it up, there's a universe of things you can do with it. And, I think it probably runs PSP games quite well. It's been so long since I've looked at what's possible to do on a Vita, that I'm not 100% sure, but that might be something, worth looking at. If you bought it and you're like, boy, this sucks, but you've already spent the money, maybe you could replace that whitelist and at least try to run those other games and see what happens, and try to have a better experience. Yeah, people in chat are like saying like all of the things you can do with it, like you can force it to run at the correct resolution instead of the weird shitty upscaling that it does, and a lot of other things. It sounds relatively simple, so you might look into that. At least if you're dissatisfied with the item itself, then there's maybe no harm in fucking with it at this point. I don't know. I would give that a look and kind of see how that stuff goes. That's what I would do. Moofin writes in and says, I have one simple question. Because Def Jam seems to always be in vaporware hell, what are some rappers you think would be good guest characters in video games as DLC, skins, or costumes, or whatever? We can't just let Snoop Dogg commentate everything. Why can't I play as Busta Rhymes in Multiverses? Yeah, I think that, what if you put Ghostface Killah in as a commentator on just about anything ever? I think that would be a good. I think he would be good in a guest commentary kind of role. Handemonium over in the Discord says Freddie Gibbs. That'd be a good choice. I think, look, I think when you want a rapper in a game, oftentimes it is, oftentimes rappers in games have been used in fighting games, whether it's Snoop doing commentary for UFC or appearing as a guest character in one game or another, it is typically used in a throwing hands kind of setting. And so I know he's not maybe not around to do this, but I think Sean Price be someone I would love to use in a game to beat the shit out of other people. I think that'd be good. Rest in peace to Sean Price. Yeah, I don't know. I don't want to get on some weird like modern day rappers are fucking soft, but like I don't know that there's when I think about like who recently would I want to put in much of anything. I think depending, when it comes to like playing roles and acting and stuff like that, like what if you put like Pusha T into a Grand Theft Auto game? What if he played a role there? I think he could probably do pretty well with that. Obviously, yes, a lot of people saying Killer Mike and LP, Run the Jewels were in Gears and did fine there. You could do something like that for sure. Yeah, West Side Gun, I think, would be a great voice to be in something for sure. Let's see here. We got a couple more emails, and then we're going to call it. I know there's a lot of emails this week. I'm kind of clearing out some of the backlog. I had a lot of them starred, and want to get caught up, so to speak. Gary in Wagga Wagga, Australia. That's not a place. That's not a place, right? That doesn't sound real. Gary wants to know. Hey, can we all take a moment to reminisce about the Alex Kidd series for the Master System and Mega Drive? I've been thinking a lot about it after getting the remake on PlayStation 5. My parents talk about staying up all night playing Miracle World in the late 80s and how it was the bee's knees in their friend group. Man, that's brutal. But was it actually good? I remember playing it as a youngin' and look back wondering why Mom and Dad didn't get an NES. Yeah, Alex Kidd in Miracle World sucks. It's not a good game, and I am not sure that any of the Alex Kidd games are good. Alex Kidd in High Tech Land was interesting. Shinobi World was an interesting idea as well, but that Genesis game, what was that? Enchanted, whatever the launch window Genesis game was terrible. Alex Kidd in Miracle World is a game I played quite a bit of because I bought a Master System as well and wanted to get my money out of it. And I remember probably less than a month after like begging for a Master System, my parents finally cracking, because it was Costco, I think, and it was not the same full price that it launched at. Getting it, and then like eventually just being really depressed, like, man, I should have just asked for more Nintendo games. Why did I do this? All these games are fucking terrible. Terrible is a strong word. But like, again, it was a console where you got a lot of arcade ports, and so like, yes, that was a decent version of Afterburner for its day, but Afterburner is a game you finish in half an hour, and then you're fucking stuck with it. Obviously, yes, Phantasy Star 1 was there. You know, there are. I love Zillion. I think in the years that have followed, and as we get further away from the whole buying one and then having to buy games for it and all that sort of stuff. In fact, I believe the first edition of the Jeff Gerstmann Hall of Fame, which I believe level 3 patrons will get early access to as soon as it is recorded. I'm hoping to get that done this week or next. I believe it will be for a Master System game. Gonna start strong. Gonna start the show with a showstopper. Yeah, the Master System is funky, and Alex Kidd was maybe never a good game. If it was the only thing you had, then it was the only thing you had, right? But hey, people always say like, oh man, Alex Kidd could have been the mascot and Sonic stole it, and like, imagine, you know, I'm not going to go through it again. You know, my views on Sonic the Hedgehog as a concept are pretty well conveyed at this point, but could be worse. You could have tried to go into the mascot wars era of video games with Alex fucking Kidd. Right? I mean, that never would happen. Let's see here. Benjamin writes in and says, I have enjoyed Street Fighter from a distance. Seeing the recent gameplay of Street Fighter 6, I was wondering, what place does Street Fighter 4 have in your gaming cycle, in the fighting game community, and in the franchise. With the release of Street Fighter IV, I saw Street Fighter II as the last golden age of the series. Perhaps this wasn't accurate, but it seemed that Street Fighter II still stood up and was a fun throwback, but not necessarily relevant beyond reminiscence and retro appeal. Has Street Fighter IV now slipped into that same place? I'm just getting into the series, and Street Fighter IV slaps on a Series S X. Street Fighter IV was awesome. I remember going to Las Vegas to see Capcom show off a handful of games that they were working on at the time, and Street Fighter IV was there. And it was fucking rad. Because it had been so long since there was a new Street Fighter, you know? They had kept pumping out all the remakes and anniversary collections, and you know, they had Darkstalkers. We were just talking about how Capcom had a zillion different fighting games. But after Street Fighter 3 came out, like, it just felt like, you know, the arcade stuff, like, arcades kind of changed. Their place in history sort of started to wane a little bit, at least here in the US. In Japan, of course, they were still going at least somewhat strong. But Street Fighter 4 was a game that everyone could rally around because it was the next Street Fighter game, and because all of the people that played Street Fighter 2 and 3 and all this other stuff still, you know, they had Street Fighter knowledge, they had Street Fighter ability, and Street Fighter 4 focused everyone in a way that kind of, I think, in a lot of ways made the modern fighting game community possible, and gave everyone a focal point to rally around. And I think that what that did for the scene in general was revitalize it. And it created a universe where all these other fighting games could come out and do well, and do well competitively, and do well in ways that were attracting communities and pot bonuses and money matches, and, you know, like all of that sort of stuff. I think a lot of the modern version of what we think of as fighting games, I think a lot of that came back when Street Fighter 4 came out and people were stoked. And it's a cool game, and it has cool characters. And they should put Hakan in Street Fighter 6. That's what I think. Like, that's what we need to be doing. It's putting Hakan in a goddamn another game. Let that man oil up. All right. Brandon from St. Louis writes in. This will probably be our last. This will probably be our last one. I've gotten to a point in my life where I'm finding newer games less and less enjoyable to play, and found myself going back to older games to spend my almost non-existing free time. There's just something about these old games that feel more alive to me, especially when going back to play some old school Ultima Online, EverQuest, or Star Wars Galaxies. Do you think MMORPGs will ever have a redemption period, or are we stuck with the genre being stuck in a free-to-play, buy-to-win combat simulator? Man, yeah. It's, MMOs used to, the term MMO used to mean something very specific, and the other thing to remember is that bringing players together at that scale used to be a lot harder than it is today. And that's why you had these games coming out with monthly fees, because the servers had to be run, and you could only have so many players per server, and so you had to create character. We still see it in some games here and there. I mean, fucking Diablo Immortal makes you pick a server, which is weird to me, but you still see it. But it used to be like, okay, well, what server am I gonna? And you'd hear like, oh, this server is like, these people are, and eventually they would designate more and more like, this server is an RP server, and so these people are fucking nerds, and you don't want to join that server unless you want to talk in the fucking Queen's English all the fucking time, and who the fuck wants to do that? And you'd have your PvP servers. So you'd have like your hyper competitive servers, or, you know, it's like, hey, on this server, there's someone camping this area all the time and they're total dicks. And that's not fun. But different servers would have different vibes, is the point. And it's a lot of stuff that was just governed by the technology in use at the time. And so I always look at Guild Wars as being the game that really paved the way for what we think of as an MMO today, or in terms of a multiplayer game as a service, like whatever word you want to use to assign to that. In a lot of ways, Guild Wars is the blueprint for so many modern games, because they found a way to do it in a way that didn't necessarily mean that you had to run all these specific servers and shards and players were split up and all this other stuff, by having like, here's a shared social space and we're just going to kind of connect you on the fly. And then when you're instanced, when you're out in the world fighting, and if you want to bring other players out there, team up in town and then go out there and do it. And you can do it whenever you want. Like, that's pretty much what all of these other games went on to do, in a lot of different ways. Now what they did start doing is like, oh, now we've instanced the open world as well, where you're going to run into players out there too. We'll have like 30 players in this zone and you'll auto connect and disconnect or whatever. So you just see random people running around doing shit. And so the world feels more alive. And so it's a little more lively in that sense. And it's not like, MC's asking if Guild Wars is pretty much like Phantasy Star Online. And the answer is yes, except that Phantasy Star Online had it did have lobbies where you would occasionally see random players, but the whole game was instanced with a maximum of 4 players. So once you joined the game, it was like starting a multiplayer Diablo match. It was just like, okay, well, we can connect together and go in, but we're in our own world over here. We're not going to run into strangers per se. You can create your server and leave it open, and then other players might join it and leave after robbing you of your gear, which is always fun. But generally speaking, that's the sort of the difference. Like Guild Wars 1 was a little more just on the fly in terms of like making the world feel like it had people in it. But not in such a way that like it was a super heavy server load on them, at least my understanding of it. Because they didn't have to charge a fee. They could just sell you the game and then sell you expansions to the game. And it worked great. And Guild Wars 1 was a fucking amazing video game. Like, holy shit, it was good. Especially at the time. Like at the time, you're like, I can't believe like I'm playing this much video game and I don't have to pay them a monthly fee. That was one of their big selling points. They were just like, hey man, like, yeah, no, we made this big ass fucking game, and you don't have to pay us, and all of that sort of stuff. But it's not a traditional MMO, and very little is a traditional MMO nowadays. Destiny 2 is a game that people talk about like it's an MMO, but it's fully instanced just the same as everything else is. And so you don't join a server. You don't have a server vibe. You don't have your own section of the world that all of these other players are on. You just connect. It thinks in the back end. It goes like, all right, we're going to hook you up to, all right, this spot, this instance has room for you. We're going to throw you in here. And then you'll be in here with these players. If you join your friends, you will teleport to their instance, and then you'll all be in the same area, kind of moving around from shard to shard, whatever instance, seamlessly. And so what does MMO even mean anymore? Because it used to mean such a very specific thing around the monthly fees and those shards and those servers and that vibe. But how many players can you actually get into one zone in Destiny 2 compared to like where World of Warcraft was at or something like that? What happens if every player on a server tries, and World of Warcraft does joined worlds, and they do a bunch of weird stuff now too. So, they've retooled a lot of their stuff as well. And so the community, in-game community doesn't form the same way as it did in an MMO, because it wasn't like, oh, well, I always play Friday nights, and so I see everyone who plays every Friday night, and so I run into the same players, and we're doing the same quests, and hey, we started talking, hey, we formed a guild, hey, we did this. Now it's just like you just join a Destiny thing, and it's like here's a bunch of other people running around the fucking the social area, running and fucking doing whatever they need to do, cashing in their stuff, going and talking to the clan lady and picking up gear and then going back out into the world. And if you see people out in the world, they're just running around shooting shit and you're running around shooting shit. And like, yeah, you can communicate, but does anyone? Like, how many people communicate with strangers in that game? Like, it's got to be a very low percentage, right? And obviously, like, in this day and age, video game communities mean a very different thing than they used to, because a lot of that happens externally on Discord, on social media, on different platforms. Like, you know, there's no shortage of people you can hang out with and talk Destiny with. It just doesn't have to happen in the game. And so a lot of that shit's changed anyway. But yeah, you know, it's a very different thing now. I mean, Final Fantasy 14 has some of that, right? I'm sure, you know, Final Fantasy 11 is still kicking. You could go play that. But no, will we ever get back to that like classic MMO thing? I don't know. I don't think so. Because also I don't think that there's a ton of players that necessarily want to have an experience that is that requires that much of you as a player. You know what I mean? Like, I think that more casual drop in, drop out experience is just more sensible for the way people play games today. And so I think we'll kind of stay on that track, and you'll see more and more free to play games that are, you know, doing all that sort of stuff. That literally is like, it's MMO-esque, you know, it's like hints, you see inspiration from the kind of classic MMO days, right? But it's not doing that same sort of thing, because those problems get solved. The technical problems just get solved differently now in a way that's much more efficient for developers, probably a lot more cost effective for developers. And as a result, the games are just different. They're different vibes than they are now. You know, but if you're playing Galaxy, I mean, you know, hey, there's always private servers for that stuff. You know, you can always get out there and find a community of real weirdos out there. I wonder how the Matrix Online private server stuff ever went. If that ever got anywhere. That game had some neat ideas, but was a mess. A real mess. Anyway, that's going to do it for us here at the show. The Jeff Gerstmann Show with me, Jeff Gerstmann. Hello. How's everyone doing? I hope you have enjoyed sticking with us here for these last few hours. Talking games. What else is going on? I'll be back tomorrow, same time, 10 a.m. Pacific-ish, to play some video games. On Tuesdays, we talk video games. On Wednesdays, we play them. Weird, I know. And then on Fridays, sometimes we talk them, sometimes we play them. You never know what Friday will end up being. Especially with, like I said, the house is going to be worked on. We'll see how it all goes. Let's see. Yeah. So yeah, if you want to ad-free audio version of the show, you can go over to patreon.com/Jeff Gerstmann for more details on that. And, you know, this video gets archived on YouTube eventually and all that sort of stuff. I try to post updates on the Patreon that are available for everyone to see if you want to see the streaming schedule. If you're on the Discord, which is for Patreon members, then I try to post some events there. And if you're here on Twitch, I try to use the schedule feature, which personally I have never, ever used. But maybe you use it. And if you do, I hope you find that useful. Anyway, that's going to do it for us here. We'll be back next Tuesday with another episode of The Jeff Gerstmann Show. Art to art here. And everyone have an amazing week.
Enjoy your gaming. Enjoy your gaming. Enjoy your gaming.